Woo! What's going on, folks? Back again, Joshua City, baby. Hey, I'm here live talking boxing, baby. Hold up. Let me mute this right here a little bit. We're good. We're good. We're in here. We're here to talk boxing, boxing history specifically. Man, feeling great. No, one of those days. We're here on Tuesday, Taco Tuesday at that. So we're going to talk a little bit of boxing because boxing is good every night. It's specifically boxing history every night. And, that's what I've titled it because we need more of the boxing history talk going on these days. We don't have enough of it. So let's get a little bit more of that jumping off. Of course, you know the deal. You can subscribe to 86 Boxing on pretty much everything at 86 Boxing, baby. Go ahead, jump in the mix. Love the dialogue. We want to interact. We want to know what's going on with the world of people, and we want to know what's going on in the world of boxing history. We also do a little modern talk. This is a focus on history, but from a modern standpoint, I was actually looking at what was going on with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, who started out in their first press conference today, which went down in LA. They're going to be in New York tomorrow, I believe. With that being said, we are going to have two top five welterweights, two top five pound for pound fighters, the 1 and 2 welterweights basically, but two top five pound for pound fighters. Some would argue the top 1 or 2 or 3 fighters. Never know. Depends on how you have them listed. It can be adjustable just based on what your opinion is. But we're going to have that clash, and it's going to be for the undisputed welterweight championship. Now that's big time right there. Undisputed, the first time in the four belt era. Of course, we've had other undisputed welterweight champions, but this will be the first time in the four belt era. So this led me to want to have a discussion on some of the great heavyweights of all, or great welterweights of all the times, rather. Heavyweights stays on my mind. Of course, that's the marquee division. But anyway, great welterweights of all time. So we're going to get Crawford versus Spence. It's highly anticipated. A lot of a lot of good discussions have gone down in regards to that. A lot of opinions out there in regards to who's going to win, but it's going to be big time as far as I'm concerned. They've been talking like it's going to be on the level of some of the greats that we know of, some of the great welterweight fights we know of in the past, but time will tell. I think that both have the makeup to make it something pretty amazing. So we'll see if they can actually do so. So we're gonna dive into the discussion on some of these great welterweights. And before I do that, of course, I have to shout out my people in the building, baby. So real quick, shout out to Flat Boxing, who says, "What's up, 86? What's up with your Flat Boxing? Appreciate you, man. Man, I appreciate you definitely." I appreciate you dropping by, leaving comments. Of course, we have the dialogue, and I love it. I love the actual discussions that get to go on in the comments and all of that stuff. So, Flack, I know we've had some discussions on different things with varying opinions, but hey, that's what makes it great. That's what makes it great to discuss these great fighters from back in the day. And hey, we're not always going to be aligned on everything. But that being said, we can have our opinion. We can take that opinion and kind of just shed light on things. So it is what it is. I'm with it without a doubt. So salute to Flat Boxing, everyone. Check out Flat Boxing. Subscribe to anyone I mentioned for sure. Shout out to Rodolfo Rivera Jr., my guy, Rodolfo Rivera Jr. It says 86. Salute to you, Rodolfo. Appreciate you being in here, buddy. Of course, I always like to have you drop by, Rodolfo. We have discussions all the time, and that's good. That's good. So, Rodolfo, salute to you. Appreciate you right there. I told you I was sending you some gear. I haven't shipped it out yet, but I got you, Rodolfo. I'm not BSing. I got you for sure. I'm going to send you something ASAP, as a matter of fact, ASAP. So, get that training going without a doubt. Shout out to Boz, a.k.a. Slavin. What's up with your Boz? Boz holding it down, says, "I still can't believe it has been made." Yeah, without a doubt, that actual Spence Crawford matchup being made, that's big time right there. We thought it wouldn't happen. At least there were discussions of this year, and it kind of looked like it wasn't going to happen this year. and we're going to drag this thing out. But hey, it finally happened, so that's big time. Shout out to Boz. Be sure to follow Boz, actually, excuse me, on his YouTube, as a matter of fact. Excuse me. So Kylo Ren Boz, that's him right there. So be sure to check him out. Follow Boz on Kylo Ren Boz. He says, here I am. Let's discuss boxing without a doubt. Without a doubt. Someone says it's finally happening. Facebook user. What's up with your Facebook user? Don't know who it is, but I'm going to see if I can figure out real quick. I have to go by Facebook to do such. But that being said, appreciate you being here without a doubt. Appreciate it for sure. And Boz says, yes, Boz for everybody. All right, Boz. If you know Boz, check us out. Boxing Shit. We do it on Sundays. We talk a little modern stuff, you know. We might throw in a little history here and there. It all depends, but it's all good. We love it. We love to discuss such. Boz says, LOL, I'm there on 2 channels. Hey, appreciate it. More the merrier. Hey, if anyone wants to do it, do it. You know, it's all good. It's all good. I just appreciate everyone being here. Colin Campbell. Hey, what's going on, Colin? Love the dialogue with you, Colin. Appreciate you without a doubt. Check out Colin Campbell, everyone. Hey, he knows this stuff without a doubt. We've had some discussions on different things, or at least dialogue through the comments. So you are appreciated, Colin. So definitely thanks and appreciate you being here without a doubt. Colin says Robinson, Armstrong, Barbados, Mickey Walker, and Charlie Burley, my top guys at welterweight. Without a doubt there. You know, those are some guys I want to mention some stuff about with that. Without a doubt right there. That's top tier, top level, as a matter of fact. So that's big time. I was trying to take some notes. I was able to capture some notes, but I only got to a few fighters, to be honest with you. So I might have to do, well, there's not a might. I'm going to have to do the majority of this off top. Now, of course, I don't know everything. Hey, I'm a fan of the sport. I try to research some stuff, so I know a little bit, but certainly not enough. There are too many great fighters out there. So I did get some notes on Barbados Joe Walcott and Tommy Ryan. Then I have a mention or two on Harry Lewis and, of course, non-parallel Jack Dempsey. I have one thing, of course, he's fighting as middleweight primarily, but he was a welterweight. That being said, I wasn't able to get all of the notes that I wanted to take, so I'm gonna have to just rely on memory here, which could be a good or a bad thing. But hey, I have you all in the comments to correct me. You all on the live, you can definitely help me get some things straight. And of course, I don't know about all of the top welterweights. There have been some. I know about many by name, but that doesn't necessarily mean I know their careers in totality. So we'll be able to have some of those discussions. Alan, thanks for dropping in. Alan, appreciate you being here. Alan mentions it was the Pacquiao Barrera Morales era that got me into boxing for a second time. Good stuff right there. Hey, those were great rivalries between those guys. I mean, all 3 of them had a rivalry between themselves. So each of them put on some great fights, multiple great fights. So Pacquiao, Barrera, Morales, and we know when we're thinking about welterweights, at least here in recent times, this past decade specifically, Manny Pacquiao, he ranks up there amongst the greatest as far as that's concerned. At least the top 2 in this previous sort of decade or era. It depends on what you want to call it. Manny Pacquiao, not known to be a welterweight for the entirety of his career, but certainly someone who has made a worthwhile name for himself while being at welterweight. And this really pushed him to the height of his popularity at his mega stardom, which household name known across the world type situation. So shout outs to Manny Pacquiao in that regard. Colin Campbell says Henry Armstrong had 46 fights without a loss between January 1937 and May of 1939. So he almost fought Floyd's career in just over 2 years. Yes, Henry Armstrong, one of the greatest of all times, regardless of weight, just in general, as a fighter, as a boxer. Henry Armstrong, Hammerin' Hank or Homicide Hank. He is one of the greatest without a doubt. An unlimited motor. He loved to get inside, be in the trenches. And when he was there, seldom anyone could beat him. It was seldom that anyone could beat him during those times. And as a matter of fact, he's who I regard as the greatest welterweight of all time, considering we're talking welterweight. So Hammerin' Hank Armstrong, the greatest welterweight of all time, without a doubt. So he is someone who was automatically going to be on this list. I wanted to take it back in history to kind of talk about some of the guys that are lesser known in some sense, but there's no way I can pass up the likes of Hammerin' Hank Armstrong. But certainly he's one of the top dogs without a doubt. He is the top dog in my opinion. Kylo Renbaz says Napolez, Gavilan, Robinson, Leonard, and Benitez are mine. Okay, yeah, all great fighters right there. All great fighters without a doubt. Former world welterweight champions. So they're good. Colin Campbell, Barbados Joe Walsott. Yeah, he was who I was going to lead things off with, as a matter of fact. Colin Barbados Joe. He is a very interesting fighter, interesting character in the sport of boxing, just in general, just given the dynamics surrounding his size, what he was able to accomplish even beyond welterweight. Yeah, he is one of those true interesting characters in the sport of boxing. So Barbados Joe Walcott, without a doubt, someone I wanted to lead things off with because, hey, he's that guy. And he put in a lot of work in the world of boxing for sure, especially around that welterweight era. But, he fought up as well. So we have to give him his props without a doubt. Barbados Joe Walcott. If you don't know him, you should know him. And if you think about Arnold Raymond Cream, he is Jersey Joe Walcott. And he got his name by virtue of his affection for the Barbados Joe Walcott, former world welterweight champion and one of the greatest little fighters we've ever seen. And when I say little, I mean more so in height, because he was a very stocky guy who, hey, he made every bit of whatever weight he could fight at. You know what I'm saying? He stood 5'1", but that being said, he was able to work that 5'1" to the best of his abilities. This is a guy that could knock out heavyweights. I repeat, he could knock out heavyweights at 5'1", and you're talking about a $150 probably max around what he weighed. So, got to show love to him. Definitely got to show love to Barbados Joe. Slavin mentions, let's not forget Carlos Palomino. Oh yeah, Carlos Palomino. I don't know a ton about him. I know he was a great fighter who put in a lot of good work, had a lot of good competition that he faced up against. I definitely know of the name Carlos Palomino, but I don't know a ton about him, of course. I usually stick with the guys that go way back beyond such, but he's certainly one of mention without a doubt. Kylo Renbaz says 5'1", holy crap, without a doubt. Barbados Joe Walcott stood 5'1". Facebook user says, say it loud, son. You helping. Hey, appreciate it without a doubt. So Colin Campbell says the guys fought heavyweights and won. He beat Joe Chowinski 1 year before Chowinski KO'd Johnson. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, we can start there. That's someone I had listed down there. Barbados Joe Walcott, as a matter of fact, one of the great welterweights in boxing history. You can make an argument for him being the greatest welterweight in boxing history, to be honest with you, because he put in a lot of work at welterweight, and he is one of the greatest fighters of all time, barring any weight. And if you really think about it, he did a lot of this while he was around that welterweight range. He wasn't a big guy, as mentioned. He was 5'1", and that's no kidding, 5'1". He was born March 13th, 1873 in Guyana, but he grew up in Barbados, at least for his childhood. He grew up in Barbados. So I did a video on him for the 86 Boxing channel. You'll see it out there, and I aggregated his weight based on all that was available for his career at that particular time, and he averaged around 142 pounds. Let that sink in. This is a guy that could knock out heavyweights, and his average was around 142 pounds as far as his aggregate weight over his career. So realistically, that's what I was saying. Like, this is a guy who probably weighed maybe a $150 at tops, if you think about what he was probably walking around at, and may have fought some fights at. This 5'1", a $150, and just think about what he was able to do. Former world welterweight champion. And he had an impressive resume as well, fought some great fighters. He held the world welterweight title from 1891 to 1904. Now, there was a very controversial fight in between that was tied to a matchup between him and Dixie Kid. If you don't know Dixie Kid, look him up. He's a guy who is credited in some sense, depending on the sources or whatever, with being a former world welterweight champion. And it just so happened to be in a fight against Barbados Joe Walcott. I did a shorts video on there. It's on there somewhere. I can't remember what it's called, but I think I just titled it Barbados Walcott versus Dixie Kid in short, something of that nature. But basically, I did a quick short on it. This is 60 seconds or less, with the shorts and all that stuff. But basically, it talks about that particular fight. And it turns out that the referee in that contest actually had made a bet that Dixie Kid would win. And Barbados Joe Walcott, for the most part, dominated Dixie Kid, who was a tough fighter, a rugged fighter, and one of those guys who is one of the best, that to have fought during that era. But Barbados Joe Walcott, definitively was beating him in this contest. And the referee, because he had placed a bet on Dixie Kid winning the contest, he ended up disqualifying Barbados Joe Walcott. I think it was in the final round, as a matter of fact. And this sent out an uproar. Barbados Joe Walcott was trying to get to him and swing at him. But basically, this was with the world welterweight title on the line. So he temporarily had lost it for a minute and had to bounce back in that sense. But it was reinstated. So he actually was able to say, in some sense, he was able to hold that title from 1891 to 1904. But that Dixie Kid fight was definitely one that was a stain in some sense, and definitely not cool. You never know. Hey, boxing always had some little seedy aspects to it, but hey, we're not surprised. We know there's a lot of stuff that goes down today as well. Colin Campbell says, giant killer without a doubt. He is a giant killer. Shout out to Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more. He says, salute, bro, 86 Boxing. Salute, Bruce. Appreciate you, buddy. I do appreciate Bruce. Hey, if you're listening right now or on the replay, go check out Bruce Gas. Give him a subscribe. Very entertaining. You'll get some good stuff. A lot of great interviews as well. Bruce is holding the fort down in that regard. Great guy, definitely. Bruce, hey, I'm going to have to get you on here for a discussion one of these times. Bruce, hey, love having to talk with you. Hey, Bruce, hey, he could write a book for the most part. He's been around the block a few times, So salute to you, Bruce. Appreciate you dropping by here. Real quick, as a matter of fact, welterweight discussion. Last time I had a Sam Langford discussion and actually brought in Random Acoustic Thoughts. Random. But anyway, Random, I actually have him on the line. As a matter of fact, it's going to drop in, to just add to the discussion a little bit. We're talking about the great welterweights of all time. So why not include Random Acoustic Thoughts in this mix, baby? So I'm going to go ahead and add him in here. And you all, hey, if you have questions and all that stuff, I think I left something in the poll, like who is your favorite fighter or whatever it may be. But that being said, let's do it. Or who is your favorite welterweight, not just fighter in general, but who is your favorite welterweight of all time? Maybe we can spark some discussions on that. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring in my man, Random Acoustic Thoughts. What's going on with you, Random?
Josh City, what's good, brother?
Hey,
thanks for having me on, man.
All is good. Love talking boxing, of course, Random. And we are talking the great welterweights in history. And it's hard to narrow it down in terms of trying to surmise the welterweight division in like an hour or 2 hours or anything, really, because there have been so many great fighters that have come across the welterweight division that have been welterweight champions, even great fighters who never got that title shot, who likely would have probably been a welterweight champion had that happened. But that being said, it has graced us with many greats in the past history of the sport there. So welterweight is, it's one of the marquee divisions in boxing as well, I would say. You think about if you consider heavyweight number one, then welterweight and middleweight are probably in the running for number two, if you ask me. But hey, it's all opinion. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think there, Random? What do you think about the welterweight division and this rich history that is tied to it?
It's a great division historically. You get a lot of so it seems to me, and I focus mostly on like the very end of the 1800s, the early 1900s. So I can't speak for everything. I've touched on other stuff. I think it was me and Boxing Librarian and Scrapbook Boxing did a top welterweights of all time countdown. I was a bit out of my depth, to be honest. But but even in the early era, welterweight's a great division. It seems to me like a lot of the guys from the lower weights, like middleweight is where you start to get into the sized guys who can compete up to heavy in the early era where they do weight jump very frequently. Welterweight is like the cap. To me, welterweight is the cap of the guys from the lower weights when they come up, when they don't want to like it seems like there's a big line there, and you get a tremendous amount of talent from the lower weights who can compete at welter, but when you get up to middle, it's too much. Maybe it's something about just the sheer size of the guys involved that there's more. They have more snap to their punch. You know, they've got a lot more concussive power, and it's just there's a line of sorts. But so you have some phenomenal fighters in the early era, like Joe Gans, we know fought at welterweight. Barbados Walcott fought at welter and even middle when he was a lightweight, when he was Tom O'Rourke's protege. And he had an open challenge at one point to the heavyweights. I think they posted a $300 forfeit. Decent amount, a little bit of money at the time, although not compared to the top heavyweight purses, but as just as a show of intent.
Yeah.
And for the uninitiated, you know, a forfeit, you post the money with like a newspaper guy or a famous matchmaker at the time, and you say, okay, so if the other guy accepts if it's open or whatever, or a specific one, but if it's accepted and then you back out, they keep that money. So it's literally put your money where your mouth is. And Walcott was one of those guys.
Yo, yeah, without a doubt there, Random, man. And everyone follow Random Acoustic Thoughts. It's Random Acoustic Thoughts. He's on YouTube, especially if you want to learn about some of the great heavyweights from this same era that we're talking about right now with Barbados, etc. Random Acoustic Thoughts, especially if you want to learn about also Sam Langford, the Joe Jeanette's, Harry Wills of the world, Sam McVeigh, etc. Check him out. Random Acoustic Thoughts, without a doubt. Real quick, Random, I want to shout these people out real quick who've dropped some questions. Slavin says Guyana has produced some very fine boxers. No doubt. Barbados Joe Walcott being the best of them, I guess you can say. Salute Bruce Gass once again, who says salute. Colin Campbell says Mickey Walker was undisputed welterweight champion, undisputed middleweight champion who fought against top heavies like Jack Sharkey and Smelling. Without a doubt there, Colin. I mean, it's amazing to see. So for all those individuals who probably aren't in tune with the history as much and you're more so geared towards the modern world of boxing and you don't fathom or can't see a guy being a welterweight or a middleweight going up to fight a heavyweight in a legitimate manner, then I remind you or I tell you, go check out Mickey Walker versus Jack Sharkey or Mickey Walker versus Max Smelling. And you will see that actually real time. Mickey, I believe he was fighting more in that middleweight range at that time. But that being said, he's a smaller guy who chose to go up to heavyweight and try and get a title. And it takes some cojones, as they say, to be able to do something like that. So it can be done. It has been done. And fighters of the past have definitely done it on a more often, I guess you can say, than what we see today. We really don't see it today. I think Roy Jones is an example of someone who last went up to actually win, a version of the belt or whatever. But that being said, it was a regular occurrence back in those times. It was no problem at all for one of these guys to go up and challenge themselves against the heavyweights of the era, which is big time, without a doubt.
But also, you didn't have to be in the weight class. You didn't have to be above the weight class below to make the challenge. So Langford was inside middleweight when he fought Johnson at heavyweight. He didn't have to get up over light heavy, so nowadays you're kind of commissions for the boxer's safety. They sort of oh, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on? We actually got Boz in the building. What's up with your Boz representing here for this welterweight discussion? How you doing, man?
Yeah, it's pretty hot as you can see here, even though it's late at night. But yeah, it's going good. Yeah, pretty good.
Appreciate you dropping in there, Boz. So yeah, we're talking great heavyweight and of course, or welterweight rather, and of course there have been many of them. Dan mentions Packy McFarland, over 100 fights, never lost, undefeated, beat everyone in the toughest era too. Never got a title shot. Without a doubt, Packy McFarland, great fighter right there. I believe there's a video of him and I want to say Mike Gibbons, but I could be wrong on that. But Packy McFarland, definitely a great boxer. No losses. Hey, top tier in the sport, without a doubt. I want to do a video on him. A lot of people probably don't know about him, but that being said, you're right. Top tier boxer right there, Dan, without a doubt. Appreciate both of you being in here. Boz, Random Acoustic Talk. Check out Boz as well. Give him a follow. Kylo Ren Boz. Kylo RENBOZ to check them out without a doubt. Now, who are some of your top welterweights there, Boz?
Well, I already said. Well, anyway, as I said, I really think one of the best was he maybe if you mean the really old ones, I don't know.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
really.
The old.
Well, let's see. I
Or
believe.
it could be modern. It could be modern. Who do you rate? Who you like just overall?
Well, actually, I do like Donald Curry, for instance. He doesn't get always. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he doesn't get always enough credit.
Yeah, former
Maybe.
world welterweight champion there, at least won a version.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like supposed to be the new Sugar Ray Leonard for a while. I guess obviously, because he took over the welterweight after Sugar Ray left and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Marlon Starling also, who I also have on my Facebook as a friend actually. So he was a very very good defensive fighter, of course. Great.
Marlon Starling. Yeah, haven't heard that
Yeah.
name in a while, but yeah, he's definitely one of those guys who, hey, he stood out in an era, made a name for himself without a doubt.
Yo, can I
Yeah.
shout one? How
Who's
about
that?
Peerless Jack Britton, the boxing marvel?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna mention
340,
him.
was it 345 fights?
Yeah,
Incredible.
right.
And
yeah,
it's
that is.
obviously his 20-fight rivalry with the great Ted Kid Lewis.
Jack Britton, yeah.
Yeah, Jack Britton. He's from, actually, I've said it before. I'm making a video on that rivalry. It's in the works. It'll probably be a while before it actually comes out or materializes fully. But that being said, he's from Clinton, New York, a small town. I was having trouble finding a lot about his early life or whatever. But Jack Britton, the boxing marvel, is what they called him. It's because of the fact that, he was a super skilled boxer. He had the experience and the fights to go along with it. So definitely one of the great welterweights of all time. And that rivalry between him and Ted Kid Lewis, that's arguably the greatest rivalry in boxing history. If you fight a guy 21 or 20 times, then it's hard to say that there's anything above that. The only thing that comes
Yeah.
close to it that I recall is Sam Langford versus, I want to say, Sam McVeigh. That was about
Wills.
15 times or somewhere in that range, right?
Yep, and
Mm.
Wills is reported somewhere between 18 and up to 22, depending on your sources.
Yeah, insane.
And
And by the
14
way,
fights with Joe Jeanette.
and
Incredible.
and by the way, thank you, Bruce. I just saw that you subscribed to my channel. I'm closing in on 500 subscribers. Yay.
Salute to you, Bruce Gas. We appreciate you being in here. Hey, y'all
Thanks.
check out Bruce Gas without a doubt. Showing love to Bruce Gas, boxing, jazz, and more going on over there. I think you'll like Bruce. Check him out for sure. Give him a subscribe.
Yeah.
Real quick, let me check out these messages. Flat Boxing says late 19th, early 20th century boxing. Definitely one of my favorite eras behind the 20s and 30s, without a doubt. Hey, same here,
Wow.
Flat. Same here. I'm in the mix right there as well. Rodolfo
Honestly.
Rivera Jr. says, it's Boz in the building, baby. Let's go. Hey, appreciate having you here, Boz. Of course, Trey Titan. Hey, Trey Titan, salute to you. And he says, salute to all in the chat. Appreciate you, Trey Titan, without a doubt. And Trey Titan also says SRR, which stands for Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, many rate him as the greatest welterweight of all time. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? I'll start with you, Boz. What do you think of the great Sugar Ray Robinson at welterweight and comparing him to the other greats at welterweight?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he did do quite a lot at welterweight, but he's still, I think, by many better known as a middleweight, I guess. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's a little unfair to the others, because he was so great.
Yeah.
To put him in there, so let them have their spot instead. I say, those guys like I mentioned, Gavilan and Napolis, and who else? There was Curtis Coates. He was also, and Emil.
Curtis Coates.
Yeah, and
Underrated.
Emil Griffith. Wow, what a fighter!
Emil Griffith. He's the first 3-time welterweight champion, I believe, something of that nature.
Shout right there.
Yeah, and also Luis Rodriguez from Cuba.
Oh yeah. I've run across him. Yeah, definitely a guy that doesn't get mentioned right there, but he was a very good fighter. Had a lot of fights too. I don't know a ton about him, but I have run across him, and yeah, he was legit. It seemed to be pretty legit, And if you think about just Cuban boxers in general, we know that they're some of the most skilled the sport has seen, period, bar none. And they were pretty much holding the torch, at least from an amateur perspective, for a long time. They have been, for the most part. If you see someone coming out of Cuba, they're legit. Random acoustic thoughts. What about you? What do you think of Sugar Ray Robinson, welterweight? You know, he gets a lot of praise and high regards. And as Boz mentioned, a lot of the video we have on him is middleweight video, but certainly, you know, he started out at lightweight, I believe, and then had a run at welterweight. So he's someone who could be thrown in the mix to a certain degree.
Yeah, magnificent fighter. Fantastic competition record. You know, lightweight moving up through welterweight. I think he had more world title activity at middleweight. You know, had some great battles. But as a welterweight, yeah, one of the best ever, just in terms of how good someone was.
Yeah.
He didn't fight in a thin era either. He wasn't a guy with no one to fight, but he kept going up. Yeah, he was fantastic. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I have like hammering Hank Armstrong as the greatest welterweight. So you think about that burst of title activity at welterweight, where no one perhaps ever proved as thoroughly in that span of time who was the most dominant, because he fought a ridiculous amount of people. It was like he just went through the whole bracket in a way that you would never see today. Not since the old days do people literally fight often enough at the high level to fight almost everyone who counts. We see it. Joe Gans came pretty close at lightweight. He started having beaten so many guys that he was fighting at welter and above as well to keep a busy schedule, make money. But yeah, I have Robinson probably top 3. I actually did the countdown. I can't remember where I had him. He's top 3 or 4, because I think I had Jack Britton very high himself, top 4.
Okay.
And then I have Barbados Walcott maybe top 2 or 3, because, you know, he was a weight jumper. So as a welterweight, he was fighting bigger guys than himself. He was literally giving up weight classes. He wasn't like a small middleweight. He wasn't even a middleweight, and he's fighting these guys. So I put a lot of weight on that, even if it's not about titles. It's about adversity and being 5'1". Even if he had a 40-inch chest and he was a little triangle of muscle, he's still 5'1.5" fighting. That's short for welterweight, and he's fighting above welterweight. So Barbados Joe, all things considered, adversity, yes, but the greatest welterweight for me of all time, Hammer and Hank Armstrong, and stylistically intelligent. He had a style that was hard for people to figure out, especially if they were his own size, and or even slightly larger, as we know. So just a machine of destruction, just a brilliant fighter on so many levels. Passes the eye test, passes the resume test, passes the title test. Top 4 fighter of all time for me, and the greatest of the welterweights.
Yeah, without a doubt. I hold Hammer and Hank in high regard. I do rate him as the best welterweight of all time as well. I mean, you can't go wrong with Hammer and Hank, without a doubt. He is certainly, and he stamped his name in the mix as being one of those, the hard way, of course, going through those fights and all that stuff. And shout out to Scrapbook Boxing, who's done a number of things on him and talks about how Hammer and Hank actually got the style that he came up with, of course, where he's kind of keeping his eyes on the feet of opponents and using that as a catalyst for how he chose to engage in all of that stuff. Trey Titan, real quick, said Charlie Burley, most underappreciated welterweight of all time, without a doubt. 86 Boxing has a video on the great Charlie Burley. He is most certainly one of the great welterweights in boxing history, or fighters just in general. Doesn't get the same accolades and recognition as most, and that's because he went rather unknown, I guess, in the annals of history over the course of time. But that being said, more and more people are learning about him. He never got that world title shot, though he should have gotten a world title shot. But when you talk about purely skilled boxers who had pretty much everything you could ask for, Charlie Burley is one of those guys. And there's a limited amount of video of him out there. You can catch some rounds of his fight with Oakland Billy Smith, I believe it is, Oakland Billy. And you just can see from a skill set perspective that this guy was just top notch. And that's something that's a video I point people out to who think that boxers of the past didn't have the same skill set, or they weren't as skilled as some boxers from today. Check out Charlie Burley versus Oakland Billy Smith, a limited amount of footage that we have, and you will see firsthand that notion is not true. Those boxers back in the day were just as skilled, if not more skilled. It all depends on the scenario. You have boxers, of course, now who are on that tier. When you think about it, they could be greats in any era and all of that stuff, but don't think for a second that none of the boxers of the past, just because it was 50 years ago and beyond or whatever, don't think for a second that they weren't skilled, because they very much were skilled. And Charlie Burley is one you can make an argument for in any era as being that top tier, most skilled boxer that the sport has seen. All right.
Yeah.
Bruce Gass says Curry pretty much cleaned out the welterweight division after Leonard's first retirement. Salute to that. Salute to that. Salute to Boz bringing up the great Donald Curry. Certainly one of those. Andres Rodriguez says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Salute to you, Andre. Appreciate having you in here, buddy. Andre, it's always great to have you representing Portugal. You know." Shout out to Andre Rodriguez. Thanks for being in here. Bruce Gass says, "I talk to Starling all the time. Great guy. Hey, good stuff. Hey, that's what I was telling y'all. Bruce Gass. Hey, great content over there. Talk to Marlon Starling, baby."
Yeah, well, I also talked to him like maybe 3 times, but kind of briefly because he's kind of busy sometimes.
Yeah, we might have to get him on boxing chat there, boss. Let's make some stuff happen, Doug. Great Marlon Starling.
But it's been a while now. I think last time was probably before the COVID. But anyway, I remember that I asked him about the Hannigan fight, because he really dominated Lloyd in that fight. I mean, and I asked him how he was able to dominate him like that. He was like, because he said because he tried to fight and he can't. That's what he said about Hannigan. So that meant he's more like a boxer than a brawler or whatever. So yeah.
Okay, that's good stuff. Exclusive stuff right there. No, that's dope. That's dope.
Can I ask you guys something? Can I ask you guys who you favor in Spence Crawford? Who do you guys stylistically? Who do you think's got the edge there?
Well, I said I have Crawford. I favor Crawford because of his, kind of ability to adapt, and to his opponent's styles and all that. And those, the stuff that he does, he changes the how do you say it, the stances sometimes from orthodox to southpaw, and that's something few can do also. Still it's a rather open fight, I would say. Nothing is, of course, 100% certain, far from that. Yeah, but I think I have Crawford as a favorite.
Yeah. Probably. Good stuff. Same here. I got to be honest with you. I just think if you look at what Crawford brings to the table, I just think there's an extra something in him. And some of it is the ability, and then the other piece of it is like the intangibles, the stuff you can't measure, all that. I just think he has an edge to him that I feel that by any means he's going to do what it takes to get to victory. And I like Errol Spence as well, and I think that he will definitely be trouble for Crawford. And if Errol were to win, I wouldn't say it would be a shocker, you know what I'm saying? But that being said, as far as when I look at those fighters that have that mentality that has been tied to some of the greatest ever, both of them have semblance of it. But that being said, I think that Terence Bud Crawford, he just has that makeup that includes everything that makes him pretty much complete in the grand sense of things. There's just like so much that he can do in the boxing ring. And it's hard for me to see anyone beating him while he's at his peak. And right now he's 35. That being said, still top tier. We've seen him knock out David Avanesian in his last fight. So we haven't seen any slippage, or we haven't seen him slow down a bit. So I just think he is pretty much the best fighter in the world right now. And I think he'll show that on July 29th when the two face off. It's
so great. It's so great that it's happening. I'm not even, if that's not a weight class I pay attention to in boxing, but I'm excited about it. I'm not shelling out for pay-per-view. I only pay for like little bits of MMA.
That'll be the worthy one right there.
It goes up afterwards, the highlight, and eventually someone slaps it up on YouTube. And at that point, I consider it the promoter's job to get it off of YouTube. I don't feel bad after the fact if someone uploads it and I watch it.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't stream, but I don't feel bad afterwards. I'm like, it's your job, man. Get it pulled or I'm going to enjoy it. So I'm excited to see what happens just between these great fighters. Before it's too late, before they get too old. They're only in their 30s. In the modern day, for a variety of reasons we won't get into, they can last longer in the sport. So, yeah, it's a great thing. Hey, real quick, you see my avatar here? You see what I'm wearing?
Oh yeah.
Can you see what that is? Hold on a second. Hold on.
Random
You see
acoustic
that?
thoughts in the mix.
Finally, we see you.
Hold on. You see that?
Joe Louis. Yeah.
Joe Louis is 137 years old. Good stuff from the movie. Coming to America, baby.
Oh,
Yeah, man, the greatest boxing scene in movie history to me. I'm always let down by boxing movies, but that right there, that's some real shit.
All right.
I saw that on Twitter. I had to have it. Joe Louis, 137 years old.
That's good stuff. The great
Eddie Murphy,
Joe
man.
Louis. The great Joe
one.
Louis, without a doubt. Real quick, Trackmaster 844. Appreciate you dropping by, Trackmaster, if you're still here. Without a doubt, he says, any love for Carmen Basilio? No doubt, we got to give love to the upstate onion farmer from Canastota, New York, home of the Boxing Hall of Fame. Carmen Basilio, definitely one of the great welterweights of all time. One of my favorites just in general as a fighter of all time. He was actually world welterweight champion and rose up to middleweight and defeated the great Sugar Ray Robinson. That tells you what he's made of. He's one of the toughest boxers in the history of the sport, and he was gritty, and he would fight and bang it out with anyone. Carmen Basilio, you ask Trackmaster, no doubt about it, he gets some love. One of the great welterweights. I haven't did a welterweight ranking of my own, but certainly I would have him up there, in that top tier with me for sure.
Yeah, he beat Tony DeMarco twice. I believe both times it was a stoppage. And Tony DeMarco was no joke. He was a puncher, actually hit harder than Basilio. So that makes those victories even bigger, I guess.
Yeah, without a doubt. Basilio has one of the great and iconic boxing pictures when he's there with the crown with his face all busted up. That just shows you who Basilio was as a fighter. So without a doubt, Basilio is one of those guys who deserves mention amongst the greatest welterweights of all time. And he did his thing. He showed it in the ring. And that's all you can ask for right there. So legacy-wise, he's there, the Hall of Famer. Love Carmen Basilio. Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz Moore says Trinidad was looking real good in the late 90s, without a doubt. Yeah, Felix Tito Trinidad, former world welterweight champion there as well. But yeah, he definitely was one of the good ones, especially considering modern times. He could punch and he could box when he needed to, but certainly we know him as a puncher. And a lot of guys felt the wrath of those punches coming from Tito Trinidad, one of Puerto Rico's greatest fighters of all time, without a doubt. And hey, his name deserves to be thrown in the mix, especially when you're thinking about the last 30 years or so. Tito Felix Trinidad, he's a part of that welterweight history, of course. So salute to Tito. Tito did his thing, without a doubt. Then real quick, some other questions we had coming in here. Bruce Gas says, no problem, Bob. Looking forward to seeing you. Appreciate you, Bruce Gas, for following the bars, man, holding it down. We'll see if he's going to change his name anytime soon. Let's hope not. All right. Then we got Dark Man holding it down in here. It says, appreciate you, Dark Man. Says, hello to everyone here, gentlemen and ladies. Dark Man, seeing you in the comments and all that good stuff. Appreciate you being here, Dark Man, without a doubt. Andre says,
sorry, brother.
Shade Moore. What's going on?
Britain's a good shout. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Jack Britton was mentioned by Andre Rodriguez. Yeah, Andre, Jack Britton, one of the greats, without a doubt. Crazy, insane amount of fights. Talking about 300 plus fights, and that's of course what we know of. Realistically, it could have been way more than that when you really think about it, especially with a lot of these guys from back in those eras. And that just kind of boils it down. That's why it's hard to compare fighters of today against the fighters of the past, especially just looking at it across weights. Now you have a better time looking at those that may have had comparable amount of fights, thinking about like the modern times, others that may have had some, but it's hard to compare a Jack Britton who had 300 plus fights with someone who had a 40 fight career. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult.
Yeah, hey, Andre shouted out Dave Shade. That guy had a tough career. Look at his rated opponents. Is off the charts.
Dave Shade, yeah, he's someone who definitely had a ton of fights, a ton of tough competition. I don't know a ton about Dave Shade. I know the name. Shout out to Boxing Librarian. I know he's done a number of things on him, and he definitely is someone worth mentioning, of course.
Yeah, what's up, Flack Boxing? Big up Bruce. Big up Nick and everybody else. Sorry if Rodolfo.
Oh yeah. Nick, shout out Nick Cameron. He dropped by and left a comment, but he couldn't stay on for the thing. He's gonna be on the replay game without a doubt. Dan says Jack Britton, McFarlane, Walcott, Armstrong, Ted, Kid Lewis, Mysterious, Billy Smith, Kid Levine, Willie Lewis, Harry Lewis, Tommy Ryan. You know what? Those are some people
That's
I
a
have
great
on the
list
list
right
right
there.
there. Without a doubt. When you think about it, you mentioned McFarlane, but I had Ted Kid Lewis on the list. We know about his rivalry with Jack Britton, without a doubt. Mysterious Billy Smith, former welterweight champion. I think he was two-time welterweight champion. One of the most enigmatic personalities in the sport of boxing. He had the most disqualifications. I'm tracking it at 11 at least right now. But yeah, he was a very interesting character. Did a video on him, but it's worth checking out. Representing Canada. Shout out to Canada. Canada's had so many great boxers over the years who come in and did their thing. George Kid Levine, he's another top tier fighter there. He had a rivalry, I guess you could say, with Barbados Joe Walcott. As a matter of fact, Barbados Joe Walcott, he has an interview out there. It's a very interesting interview. It's him at an older age when he's working for the Madison Square Garden in New York, and he mentions his contest with George Levine and kind of how it was very shady in terms of the conditions and such surrounding his contract, where if he didn't knock him out, he would have to give him his purse. He would have to give George Kid Levine half of his purse, and it would be recorded as a loss. And if Barbados was to knock him out, he would still have to give him half of his purse, regardless of whether he won or even with the win and knocking him out. Very shady stuff going on back in those times. Willie Lewis, he's a very underrated fighter there, was in with a number of the great fighters in history. Of course, I ran across him in studying Harry Lewis. You see there, no relation as far as I know, at least. Harry Lewis, someone who claimed the world welterweight championship, so I give him credit for it, but he was one of the best welterweights there in the world for a minute, and Willie Lewis was a rival of his. Interesting stuff. These are Philadelphia fighters. Philadelphia might very well be the greatest fighting town in the history of the sport. You got to think that Philadelphia is up there along with the likes of New York. There's probably some
Definitely
other,
up there. Especially back in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, a lot of badass dudes came out. Dave Holly was out of there. He fought at welterweight. He fought Sam Langford the same year, 1904, that Langford fought Barbados Walcott. And Walcott fought, shout out to the great Joe Gans, fantastic, one of the all-time great lightweights, who also fought a lot at welter, including, it was a non-title fight. Last minute became non-title, but he was fighting, I think it might have been Walcott's last major fight before he shot himself in the hand. I think that was only weeks later. But they fought 15 rounds, I believe, to a draw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hey, that definitely worthy of shout out. Bruce Gass says Pipino Cuevas was a killer till he ran into Hearns. Yo, without a doubt. Yeah, I remember seeing that fight, man. It just showed you a young Hearns in there doing his thing. Pipino Cuevas.
How do you guys rate Hearns' inability? Not necessarily resume, but inability at that weight. How would you factor him if it was a tournament, everyone fought everyone? Where would he be in the pecking order? He was a scary frame to ever be at that weight, you know?
He was really, really talented, man. I don't think anybody in his era was better. Not even Leonard, at 147 or 154.
A super meaningful jab and that chopping right. One of the great chopping rights of all time. I mean, he's the guy you would point someone toward if you wanted to talk about that technique. So maybe not for the jab, but a lot of examples of that chopping right. That's what I would say. Go watch Hearns, man.
Yeah, the Motor City Cobra. I mean, yeah, you think about just the overall measurements and what do you call those, like the measurables or whatever. Yeah, he's just like a very interesting fighter right there. About 6'2", 6'3"-ish, I guess you can say. But man, lanky, but he had a punch. It's one of those punches that could stand the test of time regardless of era. So certainly he is one of those worth mentioning.
He
carried up the weights.
Yeah, he kind of was also a killer puncher at cruiserweight, so that tells you everything.
So that's props right there. He was able to carry that power up the weights without a doubt. Trey Titan says Pernell Whitaker is my favorite welterweight. Bob, what do you think? Pernell Whitaker.
Well, he was a great lightweight, but I don't know. Well, of course, as a welterweight, he also held that WBC title for a while. But of course. But I would actually rather rank him as a great lightweight, because at welterweight he had a few decision. I know against Wilfredo Rivera, that decision was kind of disputed. I mean, in the first fight, and I don't know if there was a second fight. I don't remember, but anyway, yeah, kind of also that guy from Cuba made him look bad before he was stopped late. What was his name? Hurtado. Yeah, Dios
Oh, okay.
Beliz. Yeah.
Good
So
stuff.
he was on cocaine as far as I can, as far as I heard
Oh yeah.
back then. So he
Okay.
wasn't really his old self either. So, but
Gotcha.
yeah, really hard to hit at his best. Almost impossible.
Yeah, one of the
Great.
great defensive fighters we've
Yeah.
seen, certainly in the history of the sport, without a doubt. His
Yeah.
I
movement.
got a question for you guys. So, okay,
Yeah.
what happens? What happens if the two Sugar Rays fight at welter?
Wow.
Mm,
I
that's a
don't
good
know.
one. That's a good one right
Maybe
there.
they need to do a 3-fight series,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
2 fights, one in each era. But what do you think might happen there? Two of the great stylists of all time. They were incredible at that weight. That's a tough
I
fight, right?
I think Leonard with his speed, his speed advantage and all that, his boxing IQ, his best chance would be to go for points against victory. But Robinson, he had the power to probably knock him out. Even though Leonard he
Yeah.
also had great chin. You might
Yeah.
say, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's yeah, tough one for me. Yeah, to call for sure because yeah, I'm a big fan of Sugar Ray Leonard, without a doubt. And shout out to Candy Jacobs because her father trained Leonard. She's someone I know up here. Hogo Boxing. Check out Hogo Boxing. Everyone, hogoboxing.org. Basically, yeah, he's from Palmer Park, Maryland, which is right around the way. I'm in DC, right? So, man, I'm a fan of Sugar Ray Leonard and what he was able to do. And I think he just has an excellent combination of just the skill, speed, power, just the mix of all of that. He could punch when he needed to.
Yeah.
So he's just a great fighter for me. So I think that in a series of fight, Sugar Ray Leonard gets a win without a doubt, and I know that Sugar Ray Robinson is considered by many the greatest of all time. But I think that Sugar Ray Leonard was capable of pulling off a win if they were to fight in a series of fights because Sugar Ray was no joke without a doubt, and he
Oh
kind of had it
yeah.
all as well.
I mean, if you look at how he fought Benitez, I mean,
Yeah,
that guy is a Hall of Famer, great defensive fighter, but he just, kind of, outclassed him more or less.
yeah,
There was also competitive round, but in the end, he did actually stop him, actually, in the
that's
very
right.
end.
And that's that. And Sugar Ray had that, and Sugar Ray Leonard, and I'm speaking Sugar Ray Leonard, but Sugar Ray Robinson had it too, but just
Yeah.
had that killer instinct that to take a guy out. And he had that makeup, and that's the kind of makeup I see in Crawford as well. When we were thinking about, and we were talking about a little bit earlier, Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. I think Crawford had some of that in him, where it's just like when he sees that opportunity, he goes for it. Doesn't necessarily mean he gets the
Mm,
knockout. We saw that against him against Victor Postol, who came in undefeated at the time, but Crawford was going for it. He just couldn't get him out of there. But anytime you
yeah.
see Crawford with that opportunity, he's going to take it. So I got to give him props for that, without a
You think we
doubt.
He's
might
a
see a
great.
stoppage in this upcoming fight? Are you picking him
No,
to maybe even get it done like that?
it can happen. It could happen, but both of these are great fighters. You don't see that often with two guys who are the top of their division, let alone two guys who are the top in the sport as far
Mm,
as pound for pound consideration. So I don't know that a stoppage will happen. I would lean more on the side of decision, but certainly it could happen. I think that the game plan would have to go exactly right, almost perfect for one of the
Yeah.
fighters, for both of the fighters, or whichever one, if they were to get a stoppage. But neither of them have that quit in them or that give in them. So you would have to
Right.
definitely,
You
it would have
expecting
to
a
be a
chess match
100% game plan. Yeah,
at
I think it's
first?
going to be a chess match without a doubt. I think we're going to see two
I
skilled
hope.
boxers going at it without a doubt.
I hope not too much of a chess match, so that it
Yeah,
gets
right.
boring. So nobody wants that, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah, there will be some
There's a
anyway.
lot to lose, a lot of pride at stake. Hey
yeah. We
guys, I'm
don't
gonna
want
jump
it to
off. I
be
gotta
a.
go to work.
Yeah, yeah, we don't want it to be a
Right.
Mayweather Pacquiao type thing where it wasn't
No.
really competitive at times.
No, then it
One
really does
guy.
feel like a heist. Put on a good fight, guys. Like tear it up
Yeah.
a little bit. But you would imagine that fighter, greats all of their generation like this, top pound for pound fighters. If one of them gets a bunch of rounds behind in the cards, like by mid fight, one of them's might feel they're behind and turn it up, and they might take each other places they've never been. Because is it fair to say these are the best fighters each of them has ever fought? Would that be
Oh
fair?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, without a
So
doubt.
maybe they're going to go to a place that I've said that before, right before crappy fights, but sometimes you're right. Sometimes they pull the best out of each other. Let's hope it's that. Let's hope it's like Calzaghe Kessler was a fight like that.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
both like elevated their game. Calzaghe just had a little bit more improv going on for him that pulled ahead, but that's what I'm hoping for. Like really see him go for it, win or lose.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
question. I
Pride.
think these are the two best welterweights. Go ahead, boss.
Yeah. Pride is at stake, as you said also. So I don't think anybody will to be too cautious. Just stay laid back or whatever. I think they will put on a good fight because if one of them wins, but wins by being more cautious than the other guy, that it will not look good. I guess that victory.
Yeah, there's
Hey
really
guys,
no
I gotta
other place to
bounce
go
out.
for both of them.
Yo, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, Josh. I gotta go clock in, man. Thanks for having me
Hey,
on.
appreciate you, Random. We appreciate you
Nice
dropping
chopping up
in,
with you.
buddy.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout
Yeah.
out to the listeners after the fact.
It's,
And,
it's all
Take
good.
care.
yeah, man.
Salute
Have a great
Random
day.
Acoustic
Thanks for having
Thoughts.
me.
Go check them out. Go follow Random Acoustic Thoughts without a doubt. All right, have a
Take
good one,
care.
Random.
All right,
Take
later.
care, man. Bye.
Cool. So it's Boz and I back in the mix there, Boz. You still game, right, Boz? You still game, right?
Not truly, but
Let's do it. Let's do it for a little bit. But
Um,
hey, if you need to drop off, definitely. Hold up. We got a little bit right here. We have the question that came in the mix.
Yeah.
Darkman says, I think Barbados Joe Walcott, Nicky Walker, Tommy Ryan, Henry Armstrong, Sugar Ray Robinson should be in the conversation. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, Darkman. Without a doubt. All of
But
them.
they are already. They were in
We
the
spoke on
conversation.
pretty much the majority of them, except for Tommy Ryan. He's someone I wanted to mention. He had the welterweight championship for about 5 years. He won it in a fight with Danny Needham that went 75 rounds in over 5 hours. Just think about that. 75 rounds over 5 hours. I think it was in
Yeah.
Minnesota where it went down at, but that gives you a sense of like what the conditions. That's why it's hard to
Oh,
compare
yeah.
what the conditions were like. These were 3-minute rounds too.
We forgot one really good welterweight from the 90s, Ike Quartey, Bazooka.
Oh, Bazooka Corte. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I think he's one of those. I love that fight between him and Oscar De La Hoya. I think that was kind of a pinnacle fight in terms of, man, you just got to see two real competitors go and get it, exchanging knockdowns, all that stuff. It's like both wanted it,
Yeah,
So-
really close. I think De La Hoya won because of that knockdown in the last round, but it was very close before that. I mean, it was up for grabs, I think, probably until the last round. So he knew, you saw he gave it all because he knew he had to close strong to win.
Yeah, what more could you ask for right there? Just laid it all on the line. I would hope that we could get something like that with Crawford Spence. If someone has to go out laying it all on the line, then hey, it is what it is. Hey, the better man won that one. So.
And have you seen the fight between Corte and Vince Phillips? Oh man!
No, I haven't. But I know you mentioned it. It's a good one.
Short but sweet. I mean, that was pretty.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Might do that tonight, as a matter of fact. I know you mentioned that before. I haven't seen that one. Like Bazooka Corte. So that's definitely worthwhile.
That jab, amazing jab and all that.
Oh yeah.
But he could actually hit pretty well. Also, he had the power.
Yeah, without a doubt, he could. Trackmaster 844 says Basilio fought anyone and everyone in the 1950s welterweight division and was one of the few who refused to play ball with the mob and not get whacked for it. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, Basilio, man, great fighter right there for sure. Tough and rugged. And hey, I think that's commendable in itself. He kept it straight and narrow with what he was able to do. He didn't duck or dodge any challenger. So Great love for Basilio. Andre Rodriguez says Mike Glover. No one remembers Mike Glover. Tough welterweight. Yeah, I don't know a ton about Mike Glover other than the fact that I know he had a very tough resume, as you mentioned, Andre Rodriguez. He was in there with some of the best that you could ever ask for in or around the divisions he's fought, but definitely someone worth mentioning. I think I have him on my list to do a video on him, but yeah, just one of those tough and rugged guys, Mike Glover, that is. And yeah, his name doesn't often get mentioned, but hey, he deserves mention up there up top, without a doubt. Boz mentions Jimmy McLennan. Oh, you were able to pull that off, Boz. How the heck did you do that? But anyway, yeah, Jimmy McLaren, the babyface assassin, the Belfast assassin, Ireland's greatest fighter, arguably. Certainly, he is one of the top welterweights. Had a very tough resume and schedule, and fought some of the very best. Had a trilogy with Barney Ross, and that's top tier right there. You think about trilogies, rivalries, that's definitely one that is top tier.
Yeah, he was just amazing. I mean, a tough guy, and yeah. Of course, the Barney Ross trilogy. I would love to see that. Of course, Barney Ross, of course, also deserves a shout out.
Yeah, certainly. Barney Ross, he's one that is certainly worth mentioning. He was a welterweight champion. He actually lost his title to the great for the final time. I think it was his last fight, actually, when he fought Henry Armstrong. So Barney Ross, very good boxer. Stylistically, he had a great look to him as far as just seeing how he operated in the ring. So Barney Ross, also a Marine, fellow Marine there in Barney Ross. So definitely he deserves love and mention without a doubt there. Dan says also on Basilio, he was reigning welterweight champion when he stepped up and beat Robinson for the middleweight title. Seldom mentioned, great achievement. Yes, that is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, we know the regard that Robinson is held in, and to think of Basilio, and I've seen that fight, to think of him going up and defeating him while he was technically a welterweight. I remember, I think the weigh-in, I want to say, didn't Basilio come in at like 140-something pounds? A little bit over the welterweight limit, but that's crazy to think about it, right?
Probably, 149, because he was around 5'6", and Robinson is 5'11" or something.
Yeah,
so much taller.
Solid, tall, sturdy welterweight, without a doubt. Basilio, man, he's one of those guys. Definitely, he deserves mention. We had to show him some love, and is rightfully so, without a doubt. Andre Rodriguez says Leo Huck run at welterweight is also very, very good. Leo Florian Huck, man, he had a crazy amount of fights, bordering on that 300 range, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely 200. Leo Florian Huck, he fought Harry Lewis. As a matter of fact, Harry Lewis couldn't beat him. He was a tough fighter. I don't know a ton about Leo Florian Huck. Of course, you've heard me say that before in terms of I don't know a ton about someone. But that being said, one of the great fighters of the past, and he had the experience and the amount of fights to back it up. I want to do a video on him, but, those massive careers, of course, they always kind of drag out in some sense. So it could be coming at some point. But Leo Florian Huck, shout out to him. Definitely one of the great fighters in the history of the sport.
Young Corbett III.
Young Corbett III, without a doubt. Young Corbett III is one of those that deserves mention. As a matter of fact, there's a clip out there on YouTube of reporting when he passed away at whatever point. And I think there's a little bit of video of him fighting. As a matter of fact, I can't remember who he's fighting. But there is something out there on YouTube of young Corbett III fighting. Of course, you have multiple young Corbett's, the original being George Green, who fought in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
He's the original young Corbett. And you have young Corbett II, who was another great fighter. I think he was more in the featherweight range, if I'm not mistaken. But they certainly top tier.
This one was from fights. The third was from Italy, so nobody was really called young Corbett.
Right. Italian Stallions, that is.
I believe his name was Ralph or Raffaele. What was it? I forgot, Jordan or something like that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Flat Boxing says Jimmy McLennan had an insane resume, 13 individual Hall of Famers, 13 individual champions, 18 individual pound-for-pound rated fighters. and it's one of the most stacked divisions in the most stacked eras. Yeah, without a doubt. Jimmy McLaren, you don't often see his name mentioned, but Ireland's greatest fighter is arguable, of course, but I think he's Ireland's greatest fighter. You get others mentioned there, but what Jimmy was able to do, and he didn't have
Yeah,
like a crazy amount of fights. It was under 100.
but
I want to say it was in that 70 range, somewhere in there, I guess, in totality. But what he was able to do in the midst of that legendary stuff, without a doubt, he's certainly
yeah,
one of the greats. Andre Rodriguez says McLaren to be
wow,
15 Hall of Famers, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, tough resume he had. Dan says
that's
Honey Melody beat Walcott 2 times for the title of KO second time. Yep, he won the title off of Barbados Joe Walcott. Honey Melody certainly is one of those top tier guys. Tommy Ryan beat Honey Melody as well. A name you don't hear mentioned really, but he was a very good fighter. He was certainly one that you could mention amongst those top tier heavyweights. Another one being Rube Ferns, who I was going to mention as well at some point. I think that's who Walcott won the title from himself, Rube Ferns. He's someone worthy of checking out. A lot of great welterweights. This is certainly a marquee
yeah.
division in boxing, without a doubt. Yeah. And no, it was 13. So it's 13 says Slack Boxing. Yeah, yeah,
Did
good call. Melody.
Tony Canzoneri fight at the welterweight, or was he
Oh yeah,
just
yeah,
from?
yeah. Tony
Yeah,
Canzoneri, great fighter, ton of fights. Of
yeah,
course, he might be better associated with light heavyweight, but he rose in or lightweight. He rose in
lightweight.
lightweight.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So one of the great lightweights of all time. I can't remember. He may have fought
a
below
legend,
lightweight.
really.
He may have, but certainly, hey, he's
Yeah,
one
I
that has
think
to be.
he did.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I
So
know
he.
that he was the light welterweight champion of the world, if nothing. I
Okay,
don't know
yeah,
about
yeah. It
welterweight.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah. So 140. Yeah, he was a master of that. The 140
yeah,
pound division, I guess you can say. But certainly Tony
yeah.
Canzonero, another one of those great fighters who doesn't often get mentioned, and he should be mentioned for sure.
Mm.
Black Boxing mentions Barney Ross was the most skillful out of the insane 30s era. Canzonero and McLennan have monster CVs that overshadow Barney Ross. Was damn near flawless as a boxer. Yeah, Ross, man, that's what I'm saying. Flat boxing stylistically, I mean, you look at one of those sort of pure naturally skilled boxers or fighters, I guess you can even say. He is certainly one of them, and his style is just so easy and graceful to look at. He's had such fluidity. He's definitely one of those guys who deserves mention without a doubt. Under Rodriguez says, I have these BL stats by my side nowadays. Good stuff, Andre. Good stuff with that there. Those stat books. Shout out to the boxing librarian, aka Hard Blind Boxing Talk here on YouTube. Go check him out. He's got some stat books he's dropping. It really breaks down and digs into the accomplishments of these fighters from a statistical standpoint, which, hey, they say numbers never lie. Numbers never lie. So it's worth checking out. So that's definitely one of those things you want to do right there. Dan says in the primes, Leonard came back from behind to KO Hearns. Enough said. Yeah, hey, that's that type of grit that you gotta have. You gotta be a real deal boxer to want to do and
Yeah,
want to be involved in that sense.
yeah. The decisive factor there was that Leonard had better stamina as well as better chin also. But that there, I think it was more about Hearns who gassed late in those rounds and
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
stopped.
No, without a doubt. Shout out to Poland Ball 69 says, where do you rank Jack Britton and Ted Kid Lewis in the division? Definitely top 10 fighters in the welterweight division. They had the greatest rivalry. We were speaking on that, the greatest rivalry between the two of them, and they exchanged wins. But man, they had the fights to back it. 300 plus fights. You're talking about both of them having more than 300 fights, probably well beyond that. So they got to be in that top 10, arguably top 5 range. So if you have them in that top 5, or even if you have one of them at number 1, I understand it, and I don't think you necessarily.
Mm,
I don't think it's necessarily wrong. It's an opinion for everyone, but
yeah,
certainly they have to be ranked up there in the top tier, just given the amount of competition and the amount of times they fought at welterweight. So that's big time, without a doubt.
yeah, for sure. I mean, they were really good. There were several great eras for that division. I guess First
Oh, yeah.
one was when Henry Armstrong fought, and all those other guys. Fritzy Zwick, for instance, also.
Oh, yeah, Fritzy Zivic. Yeah,
Yeah,
former
and,
welterweight champion there.
yeah,
Dirty
and
boxer
Sugar.
by many accounts.
Yeah, he actually was the one, I believe, who ended Henry Armstrong's reign as champion.
That's it. Yeah, he won the title from Armstrong. Certainly,
Yeah,
Fritzy Zivic. He's one of those
mm,
guys, yeah, who tough and rugged guy, a real fighter for sure. But
yeah,
yeah, he's regarded as dirty by some. Hey, you knew the tricks of the trade, would do whatever to get that victory. Hey, can't knock it, I guess. Shout out Fight Fan. Fight Fan in the building. Hey, appreciate you, Fight Fan. He said, do you think Barbados Walcott stands a chance against Robinson? I do think he stands a chance, without a doubt. Robinson is going to have that size against him, of course, but Barbados has chopped down bigger guys before. Now, that being said, Robinson was supremely skilled himself, so it would certainly be tough for Barbados Joe Walcott. And I think that Sugar Ray Robinson would know what to do stylistically to thwart Barbados Joe Walcott's like offense style or whatever he may
mm,
be bringing to the table. So that would be a tough fight for Barbados because he'd be giving up a lot from a size perspective, but this would be giving up a lot to a guy who is considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. So that would make it very tough, without a doubt.
mm, yeah. Listen, I think I gotta go now. Actually, so it was
All right,
fun,
Boz.
but
Hey, appreciate you dropping in,
thanks.
buddy. Yeah, I'm gonna finish it
Sure.
up, but we're gonna catch you. We'll be in talks. We'll be chatting.
Yeah,
I'll finish up the rest of it, close it out, and I appreciate everyone being
yeah.
here. We'll get it out. But thanks,
Cool.
Boz.
Yeah, always a pleasure. See ya.
All right,
Bye.
have a good
All.
one. I know it's late there, so see you.
Yeah, it's really all right. Bye.
All right. All right, folks, it's down to yours truly. I had Poland Ball says, hey, 86, do you get on the podcast? I'll be down to chat. Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm going to put you on here. Give me 1 second, as a matter of fact. Everyone hold up for 1 quick second. You got to go ahead and grab some. Take a quick bathroom break. I'm going to get you on here, Poland Ball. No doubt about it. 1 sec. All right, folks, back in the mix. Hey, I'm about to drop that in. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Anyone wants to come on, feel free to come on. Polar Ball, want to definitely get you on. Always down for that. Hey, this is great to have a discussion on the history of the sport. So you'll see it there. Anyone wants to jump on, without a doubt, we're down for it, or I'm down for it for sure. I'm holding the fort down for the time being, since some of my colleagues left, but certainly Poland Ball, feel free to jump in that thing. I dropped it in the chat there. Continue to go through. Darkman says, OMG, I didn't know about the 5-hour fight, my lord. Yeah, Darkman, Tommy Ryan, 5-hour fight between him and Danny Needham. Now, what I can say is just based on from the reports and accounts of the time, not every round they weren't going at it in every round. They spent a number of rounds, especially through the early part of the contest, just kind of posturing, not really throwing a ton of shots, and not really dishing much out. I think once it got to the latter portion of the fight, neither really had a scratch on their face. I think it was the 38th round, if I'm not mistaken. I had read something earlier from some of the notes that I had that Tommy Ryan dropped Needham. But that being said, it went, crazy amount of rounds, 75 to be exact, 5 hours fights, or 5-hour fight. And that's not the longest in boxing history, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know about that. So I have a video on Tommy Ryan that is out there. It's one of the latest videos that I've created. So the last video was a John L. Sullivan video, just kind of speaking to the fighters that John L. Sullivan didn't face. But before that, it was Tommy Ryan. And Tommy Ryan, man, one of those great boxers who doesn't quite get the mention, but he had a run at both welterweight and middleweight that puts him right there in the billings as one of the top fighters ever. He only lost twice, I think, from an official standpoint, or at least those may have been newspaper decisions, but only 2 losses accounted for. And that being said, he was, top tier without a doubt. I don't think he lost at welterweight. He was undefeated at welterweight, but he's one of those great boxers of the past. Darkman says I need to do more research on Tommy Ryan. Without a doubt, Darkman. Yeah, hey, there's a video on 86 Boxing that dives more into his career, without a doubt. GRF 64. Salute to you, GRF 64. Appreciate you dropping by, buddy. Without a doubt, it says my top 5 welterweights ever would be 1, Sugar Ray Robinson, 2, Armstrong, Hammer and Hank Armstrong, 3, the boxing marvel Jack Britton, 4, Barbados Joe Walcott, and 5, I believe, Emil Griffith. I believe he's the only 3-time undisputed world welterweight champion. So that says a lot, or that speaks volumes in that sense. He's one of the top tier guys, without a doubt. Oh, did I not drop that in there properly? Let me see. Hold on, folks. I thought I dropped it in, Poland Ball. My fault. I actually didn't, I think. Yeah. Oh, no, I did. That link is there, Poland Ball. If you're still on, of course. Hey, you want to come on and talk some history? I'm here. Let's make it happen. Flack Boxing. Salute to you, Flack. He says, with high rank, which is quite detailed, Armstrong beats Robinson in every category. Without a doubt. Hey, I don't think that's blasphemous. I think that a case can certainly be made in that regard. We know that they fought, but Armstrong was, of course, at the tail end of his career, was pretty much a fighter on the downslide of his career as well. And it was a fight he needed for the money. And Robinson was pretty much in his prime at that particular time, and he was able to pretty much easily handle Hammer and Hank. But that being said, Hammer and Hank at his peak, at his best, tough fighter to deal with. Just the volume of punches that he threw, as well as him just being a master of the inside fighting game. He would put his head down, head in the opponent's chest, and just get the wailing away. And he had a motor that was insane for the sport. So that, I think, shows that certainly he ranks amongst the greatest of all time, if not the greatest, when thinking about the welterweight division. And also, you can make a case as the greatest fighter of all time as well. There's really no wrong way to go about it. Varying boxers have come through over the years, and there have been a number of great boxers, but we all know from a general consensus standpoint and just looking at the career, the competitive nature of what it is that they did, that there are some boxers who stood out a bit more than others when we take into account the overall history of boxing. And I think when you take that into account, then there may be some cases where some don't view Sugar Ray Robinson rather as the greatest fighter of all time, though many do, even historians, etc. Many view him as the greatest of all time, but I think there are a number of fighters who could certainly make a case. My greatest fighter of all time, now my heart goes with Muhammad Ali, but just thinking about it from what I've done from a research standpoint and just kind of seeing the schedules and who certain fighters fought from a resume perspective. I think pretty much Sam Langford and Harry Greb are interchangeable in some sense. So if you have them as your number one, number two fighters, then I think you can go no wrong there. I have Henry Armstrong a little bit higher than most would have. As a matter of fact, I would likely have Henry Armstrong as 2. I haven't done a full-fledged list, but I will put him there in the 2 ranks. But yeah, certainly top 5. You had to have him in there along with the likes of Harry Greb, of course, Sam Langford, Sugar Ray Robinson deserves some nod in that sense. And yeah, it opens up from there for sure. There are so many who have graced us in the sport. But yeah, I can certainly see that. Flack Boxing, appreciate you sharing. Flack Boxing says, have we really ever disagreed when it comes to fantasy matchups? You always have good points to agree or disagree. 86. Yeah, good to go. Salute to you, Flack. Yeah, I think we were talking to Robinson versus, or not Robinson, but Marciano versus Langford. I think Sam Langford. And yeah, we were kind of leaning on the wrong direction in that sense. But that being said, you make some very compelling arguments, Flack Boxing. So, hey, it's all love. I think that you make some very compelling points. And I see stuff in the comments and reading them and going through that process. There are many of those that kind of sway my judgment in some sense. And I'm for it. I don't think that anything has to be definitive. I think as more information comes about, a person can make a change and think about how they may have rated someone in some capacity. And I think that's a good thing for the sport. I use a prime example. I have a video out there. It's one of the videos I did early on when I started to focus on YouTube a tad bit more. And it was a potential fantasy matchups between John L. Sullivan and the Black Prince Peter Jackson. And if you watch that video or see it through the end, then you'll know that I had noted that I thought that John L. Sullivan would be the one to pull it off in that contest of matchup between them. Now, since that time, of course, I've had sort of a change of heart, which I think is acceptable. And just as I've learned more and gone through the history of the sport more, it just looked at what the two did. And I think the last video that was submitted on the channel, which is a John L. Sullivan in black and white is what it's called. I think that provides a great example of me making a case or changing course in some sense and moving more so with the Black Prince Peter Jackson in a matchup between the two. Now, that doesn't say that John L. Sullivan wasn't a great fighter, but certainly I think that the Black Prince Peter Jackson might have been the best heavyweight of that era, though he didn't get a shot at the world heavyweight title. But it wasn't because he didn't want it. I think it was 1892 or somewhere in that range where he racked up so many wins, 1892 or 1891. He racked up a number of wins just knocking out, in a single year, knocking out fighters in both the U.S. and in the UK. So top tier fighter. Slaven Ajanovic. Check out Slaven, y'all. He says, bye, guys. Nice to chat with you all. Appreciate you. Appreciate you there, Slaven. Then Dan. Hey, Dan. Appreciate you, Dan. Let me just say that real quick. Dan, hey, I catch all your comments. I appreciate you dropping in, sharing your knowledge. Everyone check them out. As a matter of fact, in the comments, I think there's a lot of great knowledge that is shared in the comments. If you want to learn about the history of the sport and hear real constructive dialogue regarding such, and just check out the comments on any given video or video of a fighter that you have an interest in or want to learn more about. And you'll see even the comments beyond myself, they're just others who are very knowledgeable of the sport. And they provide their insight. And hey, oftentimes I agree with it, you know. And I can be swayed myself in regards to certain things because I think there are some very compelling points made. I may not remember or see everything in every sense, but certainly I appreciate everyone who's a part of the 86 Boxing subscription or family or whatever, because I think that it all makes for great dialogue. And at the end of the day, we're all fans of the history of the sport. And that's what this channel focuses on, the actual history. We get a lot of the modern talk, and we get the modern talk every day. There's some big channels out there that are providing that type of constructive feedback providing that type of constructive information in relation to what's going on here in the modern time, like right now, real time. And we even do that podcast on Sundays, Boxing Chip. But that being said, I feel like there's so much history tied to the sport. And one of the things I want to do is engage in dialogue in it. But that being said, yeah, I appreciate everyone who comments and they share their nuggets and feedback. I've gotten a ton of nuggets from the comments. So anyone who checks those out, I think you will get a lot of good information. Dan says Sugar Ray Robinson was so dominant, fast, skilled, and vicious. Sometimes the handsome lads don't get noticed for extreme viciously. Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt there, Dan. Yeah, Sugar Ray Robinson, certainly worthy of the billing of the greatest of all time. As mentioned, I don't have him as my number one greatest fighter of all time, but hey, I'm not saying that he isn't. Certainly, that's just opinion of mine. But he's certainly worthy of the billing. And from all accounts, in those that actually saw him live in person, which I didn't, they think he's the greatest fighter to lace it up. Or excuse me, to lace him up. So you can't go wrong with Sugar Ray. That's the same case with the likes of Harry Greb. Many accounts say that he's the greatest ever, and that's from boxers and trainers alike, boxers and trainers and media alike. And hey, I don't think you can go wrong with him. Same with Sam Langford, etc. There's so many boxers you could make a case for that I don't think having one definitive answer would, throw things off. But Sugar Ray Robinson, certainly one of the best without a doubt. Haha, Dan, appreciate it. Says Basilio, also a Marine, like our fearless leader, 86. I appreciate you, Dan. Yeah, I have a video out there. As a matter of fact, it's called Top 8 Fighting Marines. Or at least that's what it was called. It's 8 Marines that I'm talking about. I think I may have changed the title to something to the tune of the fighting Marines you need to know of, or you should know of, or whatever. But that being said, yeah, I have Carmen Basilio in that video. I think he may have been around 4 or 3, one of the two, because I had Barney Ross in there too. And yeah, he was up there though. I had Gene Tunney number 1 because he, I think, represents the face of Marine boxing in some sense. Very good fighter right there, or top tier fighter, very skilled fighter, one of the scientific geniuses of the sport. So there's no way I couldn't have the great fighting Marine, fighting leatherneck Gene Tunney as number 1. So that is the case without a doubt. Hoorah to all the Marines out there, baby. Poland Ball says he couldn't make it. I was eating supper with the fam before you called. Hey, Poland Ball, without a doubt. Hey, I dropped the thing in the chat. If you still want to jump in, jump in. Flat Boxing says Greb and Langford, my 1 and 2 as well, interchangeable. Without a doubt. Hey, without a doubt there, Flat Boxing. Yeah, I think you can't go wrong with either one. Both of them had crazy, insane, pretty much almost unmatched resumes and schedules of fights. If you think about both of them, Harry Greb, for instance, I have a video out there on his 1919 alone. That single year, 1919, trumps the careers of many boxers, even some of those that are considered to be Hall of Fame boxers, etc. So I think that is worthwhile in some sense in terms of mentioning that. So there's a video out there, 1919. And if you think about how great Harry Greb is, just think about the fact that when he fought Gene Tunney for the first time, he completely annihilated Gene Tunney, completely destroyed him in some sense. Gene Tunney didn't go down, but he was spitting up and swallowing blood, had cuts and bruises all over him. And this was Harry Greb, not even at his 100% peak. This wasn't a prime Harry Greb. This was just a Harry Greb that, hey, is one of those fighters that is generational. You can't really replace a Harry Greb, or there's not too many. I really feel that Sam Langford, if you just think about the overall totality of fights, as well as who they fought, and then the resume, thinking about the resume, the CV, yeah, certainly Greb and Langford, they just kind of have to be the top 2. Them, and I think Henry Armstrong for sure, because it's just an insane amount of fights that they fought against a high level of competition. So Sam Langford, I hold him in high regard. And Sam Langford was able to carry his power up the divisions. Now with Harry Greb, of course, Harry Greb isn't one of those fighters who had a lot of pop. He couldn't really punch you per se. He didn't have a lot of knockouts. So he would have to outbox, outwork, out-finesse, outclass his opponents. And he was able to do that on the off thing. If you really think about it, man, this is top tier guy there, Harry Greb, without a doubt. Poland Ball says, BRB, appreciate you. What is a new woo? Salute to you. Yeah, I think you're new to the channel, maybe, or I hadn't seen you, but check it out. I appreciate you checking it out. It says Crawford is gonna KO Spence. Hey, that could very well happen there. What is a new woo? I think Crawford is gonna win the contest personally. It's not a given, of course. It's gonna be it's gonna be a hard fight because Errol Spence is a guy who we know can bring it. And if you saw them standing face to face today in the press conference, you can see Errol Spence is a big, solid guy. He's a little bit bigger than Crawford, who came up from 135. Errol Spence has been fighting at 147 his entire career, if I'm not mistaken. So he is a bigger guy than Crawford overall. Crawford worked his way up to the welterweight division, and I think we're going to get a great fight between the two. But I too lean in the regards of Bud Crawford being able to pull off the victory. A knockout, hey, if he's able to pull that off, I mean, that just cements his legacy and puts a stamp on it. Hey, Hall of Fame worthy right there. If he's able to knock him out and just show that it's no contest and he's just a level above. So kudos to that. I'm looking forward to that fight without a doubt. Flat Boxing says, I always thought about making a pound-for-pound list, completely disregarding resume. My top guys would be, no order, Henry Armstrong, Willie Pep, Joe Gans, Barney Ross, Gene Tunney, Harry Greb, Sam Langford, and many others. Hey, I think you can't go wrong with that right there, Flat. I think there's so many things, so many different ways you could factor in or try to account for having a certain type of pound-for-pound type feel to them or career. And I think you can't go wrong with that. Some of those guys we've talked about already this particular broadcast. We hadn't mentioned Willie Pep, but hey, arguably the greatest defensive fighter ever. His footwork was bar none top tier. You think Lomachenko had great footwork? Check out the great Willie Pep and what he was able to do. I mean, he went on some impressive run of fights over his career with these crazy unbeaten streaks that trumped the careers of some fighters. And Willie Pep, man, representing Connecticut, he might be out of New Haven. There, I have a fellow referee who got me in the game because I referee amateur boxing right now. I want to turn pro at some point, but I have a fellow referee, Joe Cusano. Shout out Joe Cusano. I need to get him on here to talk some boxing. And he put me on game and everything, but he's from Connecticut as well. I know they're making a movie on Willie Pep because Joe, I remember him. We're friends on Facebook as well. I remember him posting a picture of himself because he's used as the referee in the movie, and it was himself with the actor playing Willie Pep. So I know that's got to be coming out at some point here in the future. And the guy that they got to play Willie Pep, based on the picture, yeah, he looks kind of like him for the most part. They did a good job of casting a character that looked like Willie Pep. So that's big time. So Willie Pep, one of those greats without a doubt. And Joe Gans, I hold Joe Gans in high regard as well. We touched on him a little bit, Flack. Greatest lightweight of all time, in my opinion. But, of course, you could throw in Benny Leonard. Many throw in Roberto Duran. Ike Williams, he's another one. You know, if I had a 1, 2, 3, and I think I've shared this before, it would be Joe Gans, Benny Leonard, Ike Williams. But certainly, in some sense, they're each interchangeable. So you can't go wrong either way as far as I'm concerned. Some people put more stock into the pound-for-pound list than they probably should, but certainly, hey, everyone has their traits or their likes. My favorite boxer, if you didn't know, is the great Iron Mike Tyson, of course. I got a lot of Tyson stuff here. You can't see it here, but I have a lot of Tyson. But probably I have more Ali stuff. He's a guy who I've regarded personally as the greatest fighter of all time. You know, yeah, top tier. I mean, there's no wrong way to go. Rodolfo Rivera Jr. says, live on Twitch 286. You're really on every platform. LOL. Yeah, you know, I had to upgrade the StreamYard. I wanted this to go out to all platforms and whatnot. Now, Twitch, I don't have a ton of, as far as I know, I don't have any followers on there or anything of that nature, but I haven't been on there or really used it much. I know it's geared towards gaming and has branched into some other things, but hey, it is what it is. I'm just gonna try to broadcast there more. That's why I upgraded the plan so I can just have it on all platforms, because boxing history extends to everyone, anywhere, without a doubt. That's what we're about, boxing history. Rodolfo says, what software do you use to stream on multiple platforms? StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard. Hopefully they can give me a sponsorship deal or something of that nature so I can bring in more. But it is what it is. But yeah, StreamYard, they'll allow you to do that. YouTube, they now have a means where you can live stream, or their platform for live streaming singularly on YouTube is pretty vast. But yeah, I opt to go with StreamYard because I've been using them for over a year now, and yeah, I like it for the most part. I haven't run into any issues with it. Flat Boxing says the 2 stoppage losses he took to Sadler were actually injuries he suffered in the fights. Both he was winning as well. Misconception that Sadler had his number, although Cindy was an animal. Oh, good stuff right there, Flat. Yeah, I didn't know about the injuries and all that, but I know Pep, he was game both times. It was just one of those great rivalries, and certainly circumstantially different things can happen. Sadler, great puncher, big puncher, so I think he had a style that troubled Pep in some sense, and he was able to pull off the victories. But certainly that doesn't take away from Pep as a fighter and what he was able to do and accomplish. Just truly one of the all-time greats, especially when you think about the fighters of the lower ranks. Him and Sadler both. Pep, of course, had a ton of fights, more than Sadler, well more, and they just were 2 guys that were made and matched well for each other. So I'm always for that. And that's what the sport of boxing needs, and that's what can help it thrive. Just essentially taking into account style matchups, the best fighting the best. We hear that all the time. And, it is what it is. Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz and more. Salute, Bruce says, do you rank Duran higher than Benitez? Well, that's a very interesting one. You can make a case for both of them. As far as just skilled boxers, very good defensive boxer or elite level defensive boxer, Benitez is that. He could do it all, and he was a young champion. I think at the time, the youngest world heavyweight champion ever. I think he still is, as a matter of fact. So, man, Benitez, he was just such a skilled boxer that, yeah, I could see a case for rating Benitez higher, most certainly. I think more people are going to lean towards Duran being higher rated. And to make, of course, I think that's an argument that will stand the test of time, of course. But I could certainly see Benitez being ranked in a little bit above for sure. I think I might go with Duran in some sense. But that being said, I don't think Benitez is far off, man. He was in a lot of wars, but he would bring it because, there are some there are some defensive fighters who don't choose to engage. And Benitez, he was always one of those guys who was down and engaged. He could be defensive and engaged, without a doubt. And Bruce Gaz, you mentioned, yeah, they did settle it in the ring. Yeah, without a doubt. If I remember, I think Duran won that contest, but certainly, if I'm not mistaken, at least, or did Benitez win it? But certainly, I think that they're both just great fighters, and I wish Benitez well. I know boxing is tough for you. He took a lot of shots over the course of his career, of course, and he started out very young or whatever. So some of these boxers, they suffer later in life. But that being said, he's certainly one of the greats that the sport has seen, and he deserves this just due. And one of the greatest, you could argue the greatest fighter out of Puerto Rico that are certainly more that are top tier like that, or more on that top tier level from Puerto Rico. Some would say Carlos Ortiz is the greatest Puerto Rican fighter ever. But I think there are so many that you can, or so many ways that you can go as far as it relates to this. But hey, Benitez, great fighter, without a doubt. There, Bruce. What did I have here? It said, Flat Boxing says, Sadler is by many miles the scariest featherweight, murderous puncher. Yeah, without a doubt. He certainly was a big-time puncher as far as heavyweights or featherweights are concerned. it'll be interesting. I'm trying to think about some of the great featherweights and where I rank highly. Of course, our terrible Terry McGovern, a big punching heavyweight from the early days, I guess you can say. But yeah, so many great featherweights that have graced us. Many of them having their varying styles, but it's a marquee division in some sense. If you just think about all of the divisions as a whole, especially factoring in where we stand now, where they're more than what were considered the original ones. Featherweight has produced a number of great fighters, in addition to Pep and Sadler, and I think that's big time right there. I think Abe Patel, you could make a case for him being the greatest featherweight of all time. I think he held the title for 10 years or something of that nature. So very good fighter. The little Hebrew, Abe Patel, part of the Black Sox scandal, which I mentioned before, but I think that's just insane. The fact that he did that. They did settle it in the ring. Bruce says Benitez won a Dole UD. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I need to shore up on my 70s, 80s boxing. I know some of the 90s stuff. I usually kind of focus in on the history, but that's good stuff, Bruce. I know you're on game. I learned a ton from watching your channel, Bruce Gas, just checking it out, because you have a lot of good, interesting points on there. And hey, I think you're a straight shooter there, Bruce. Everyone check out Bruce Gas, Boxing and Jazz. Be sure to follow him. Straight shooter, no strings attached. Without a doubt, Bruce. And I remember that it was not too long ago. There was a discussion on Ali and Joe Louis, and hey, I thought you handled it well there, Bruce Gas. I know you, like me, just view Ali from a heavyweight perspective, certainly as just one of those guys that, hey, I mean, he did it all. He had the resume and everything to back. I rate him as the number one heavyweight of all time. I know you're with that, and I like Joe Louis as well. I think he was a great fighter, great heavyweight, great steward of the sport in itself, an ambassador of the sport. And Joe Louis, top tier. Those short hooks that he was able to land, man, do damage in full totality. So I have him high up there as well. So that's good stuff right there, Bruce. Definitely appreciate you. Shout out Skywalker Boxing. He's not in here, but I saw he's going live, or he either just went. He just went live right now, or a couple of minutes ago, or whatever. But probably gonna check him out as well. But certainly, hey, love talking the history of the sport, without a doubt. Love talking it. Flat Boxing says Ali is always fun to watch, without a doubt. Flat, my favorite fight, and sort of what I would show to people if I wanted them to get a glimpse of the greatness of Muhammad Ali, is his fight with Cleveland Williams. I mean, I think that just that version of Ali, what he was able to do in that particular at that particular point, man, just so dominating. And yeah, there's not a heavyweight I would rate above him, just given that look and feel of Muhammad Ali. And that's even with Tyson being my favorite fighter. But yeah, there are just so many great heavyweights that have graced us in the sport. Some of them don't get quite the recognition they probably deserve, but certainly they have made a stamp and a mark on the heavyweight division as a whole. So, hey, when we think about that, I mean, that's what brings in the fans. That's what keeps people talking and engaging on things. But yeah, so yeah, this has been fun. It's been a great discussion. Of course, in title, of course, we're looking at the welterweights, the great welterweights in history. So we went over a number of them, of course, and man, there's still more out there. I wanted to mention Nonpareil Jack Dempsey real quick. He's someone who fought at welterweight. He was a middleweight champion. But that being said, he was someone who, he rarely weighed over 150 pounds. He fought oftentimes as a welterweight or around the welterweight division from a weight perspective, even though he was fighting at middleweight. But Nonpareil Jack Dempsey, one of the scientific boxers ahead of his time, without a doubt. And he doesn't often get mentioned, of course, because it can be hard when, there's another fighter with the same name who is probably arguably the most popular boxer of all time. So, of course, Nonpareil Jack Dempsey will get buried in some sense when you just think about Jack Dempsey, or if you're looking up or searching for Jack Dempsey. If you don't put the Nonpareil in front of it, you're in all likelihood going to get the Manasseh Mall or Jack Dempsey, because we know he's responsible for the first $1 million and $2 million gate. That's because he is one of the greats of in the heavyweight division, of course. I don't know about top 10 or anything of that nature, but just one of the greats in period. And what he was able to bring into the sport, at least from a fanfare perspective, you don't find that often. Few fighters have been able to break that barrier. Ali later in life, or later in his career, or after his career, really, when he was at his peak popularity, everyone knew him. Mike Tyson, of course, he's another one that's up there, just a level of sort of mega stardom that you rarely see, rare territory. Dan says Billy Graham, one of the most underrated of all time, wasn't connected with the mob, had over 100 fights or 100 wins, only 15 losses, all robberies. They took him they took from him and beat mostly welterweight, lightweights, and middles. No, that's interesting right there. Billy Graham. I don't think I know Billy Graham there, Dan. I'm gonna have to look him up without a doubt. As mentioned, I don't know everyone. The boxing history is so vast. I'm always running across different or new fighters that I hadn't heard of all time, but he's certainly one that I will check out. Similar to that, I know someone's mentioning Jimmy Berry, a fighter out of the UK who retired undefeated as well. I don't know a ton about him, but I'm going to eventually do a video on him. Might have been Poland Ball, as a matter of fact, who had actually mentioned that. So I would certainly want to, put together something on him. So I have him on a list, of course. Going to try and work it, but I can come easily or more easily talk boxing, because creating animated videos and all that stuff, they take a bit longer, especially these days. Flat Boxing says Sammy Mandel would have been just as great at welterweight. Yeah, Sammy Mandel, the something Flash. What is his name? Flash, damn it, I can't think. Rockford Flash, is that what it is, or something of that nature? But Sammy Mandel, great fighter from all accounts, and what has been documented. He's another one that I haven't really dug into much research on him or anything of that nature, but I know the name Sammy Mandel. I know he was a top tier fighter for sure, and someone that we can mention. Matter of fact, let me look at Sammy Mandel. Sammy Mandel, I think it was a Rockford Flash or something of that nature. Or you can say the Rockford Sheik. I know him as the Rockford Flash, of course, but Sammy Mandel, great fighter right there. Let me see what he won here. Oh, yeah, world lightweight title. Okay. Oh, yeah, he beat Tony Canzoneri. I mean, that says it all right there. Joe Johnson, Rocky, Kansas. Oh, Rocky, Kansas. I know of him. I don't know a ton about him. Rocky, Kansas is one of those guys who was certainly underrated. I think I have a photo animation video on him, a deep fake animation video. So a number of these guys I have a deep fake animation on. But when I started those out, a lot of them, they don't have any dialogue or anything tied to them. They're mainly just music playing, and you can kind of see some of the facial movement and all that stuff. But great Flat Boxing, great fighter. Yeah, Rockford Sheik. That's good stuff right there. Flat. He beat McLaren, Canzoneri, and Rocky, Kansas. Yeah, cool. Oh yeah, so he got McLaren. I mean, you were talking about great fighters, some of the greatest fighters of all time, especially for McLaren and Canzoneri, each kind of worthy of that top billing. I think that's big time right there. So Sammy Mandel, shout out without a doubt. Vinny66 says Kid Gavilan was another great, just joining the discussion. So not sure if he was mentioned. Yeah, I think it came up briefly. We didn't talk about it, but Kid Gavilan, another great one right there. Vinny, without a doubt. And let me think if I'm thinking correctly. Is he the one who had the bolo punch? I think he's the one who had the bolo punch. Yeah, I believe it is him. Kid Gavilan, the Cuban fighter, for sure, one of those top tier guys who was very skilled, could do a lot in the ring, and was very comfortable in there, and made a name for himself, stamped his name in the game for sure. But yeah, Kid Gavilan representing, if I'm not mistaken, for Cuba. So he is certainly one when you think about even just the great Cuban fighters, and we know they have a long history littered with top tier talent. yeah, you could argue he's the best without a doubt. So Kid Gavilan, man, big time guy. Welterweight, thinking about it, yeah, champion, of course. So he's someone worth mentioning. Johnny Dundee, Flat Boxing mentions John Dundee as well. Now, I know about Johnny Dundee mainly from the Boxing Librarian, from looking at some of his stuff. I know he had a very tough schedule and all that stuff, welterweight champion. Yeah, I don't know all of the particulars of his career, but I do know he was a great fighter and had the competition and accolades to back such. So definitely a name worth mentioning there. Shout out to the Boxing Librarian who's done some stuff on Dan Dundee. I need to do something. I think didn't he have a brother maybe or something like that? Dan says Sammy Mandel, so great, was the first fighter trained by the great fighter and trainer Jack Blackburn. Salute. Oh yeah, that is right. Mandel, real name Mandela, Italian, but mostly lightweight. Oh yes, that is the case. So that's another guy that Jack Blackburn trained, in addition to Joe Louis, who he most famously trained. Joe Louis, of course, former world heavyweight champion, undisputed world heavyweight champion, and Jack Blackburn, man, such a great fighter. I have a shirt, a Jack Blackburn shirt. I wonder if anyone else has one out there. But man, just a hard fighter, hard man, or whatever. Fought top tier competition. He beat Joe Gans amongst others, but he was in there. I mean, he had a situation where he was involved in manslaughter in the midst of his career and had to serve time in prison. And he came out and continued to fight. I think he was in for like 6 years, and he served 6 out of the 10, I believe. I believe he got 10 years or something like that. But essentially, in between those 6 years, you had a new crop of fighters stepping up or coming into the fold. So you think about Blackburn and the guys that he fought prior to going into prison, and then when he got out, to say that he was in with the likes of a Harry Greb, for instance, man, it's just crazy. I think he fought Philadelphia Jack O'Brien as well, so he moved up in weights. Jack Blackburn, underrated as a fighter, arguably the greatest to never win a world title. There's some others in that mix as well, but I do rate him highly, and I think it's deserved because, yeah, just a great fighter. And he's in the Hall of Fame, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, as a trainer, but he can most certainly be in as a fighter as well. And I think maybe he will get in one of these days as a fighter, just depending on the circumstances or whatever. I know there's certain criteria that goes into it, but championship aside, one of the great fighters of the past and very skilled. And that's why he's in as a trainer as well. Flat boxing, gotcha. Yeah, never knew that. Yeah, that is good stuff. Flat boxing says Mandel beat, Dundee somewhat early in Sammy's career. Okay, that's good stuff. Hey, it's pretty incredible seeing when you see that some of these younger fighters or fighters when they were younger in age, they go in and beat this veteran or whatever. At least, even if they didn't get the victory per se on paper, them beating them. You think about Joe Gans and he fought Sam Langford. Yeah, they matched up early in Langford's career, and he was able to, I think by newspaper accounts, outpoint Joe Gans, who was the actual lightweight champion at the time. So he, in theory, could have been lightweight champion. But that being said, yeah, it's just amazing to hear some of these stories. Vinny 66, Tony DeMarco out of Providence, Rhode Island, another big puncher. He lost 2 classics to Carmen Basilio. Yeah, I've seen those 2 fights. It's crazy, at least what was available on YouTube, for instance. Yeah, Tony DeMarco, great fighter. I know he passed away, what is that, like last year? It might have been last year. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I feel like it was last year. But yeah, Tony DeMarco, great fighter, held it down. Yeah, great welterweight. Yeah, he's definitely worth mentioning. Tony DeMarco, I know of him from those Basilio fights, and of course I got love for Basilio as well, but he's someone I want to do a video on to get a better grasp of his career overall. But yeah, it's always great to highlight them in some sense. Flat boxing Blackburn should be in the hall. It's crazy how he was overlooked. Yeah, right. They only have him in there as a trainer, but as a fighter, I mean, come on, bar none, he fought some of the best competition of his era. And he was competitive against anyone in the ring. And like I mentioned, he beat Joe Gans, but he was in with the likes of Harry Greb. I mean, I think he was in with Sam Langford. I can't remember if it was multiple times or once, but Jack Blackburn, I mean, just a hard fighter, technically sound, a skilled fighter, and he deserves more recognition without a doubt. He should be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame as a fighter as well. As I was mentioning, maybe he gets in there one day, maybe. Flat Boxing says Basilio and Pep must be long lost cousins. Hey, they may very well be. May very well be, without a doubt. Dan says Blackburn is in the Hall of Fame as a trainer, but he should be in twice, one of the greatest fighters ever. No doubt about it, Dan. He should certainly get those accolades and be in the mix there as among those great fighters ever, because there's certainly, you can certainly make a case for him over some of the fighters that are already in there. So I think that tells you everything right there. So hopefully he gets in there at some point. I don't know that the International Boxing Hall of Fame has some stipulation similar to some of the other sports we see in modern time. I know baseball is like after 10 years or something like that, then you no longer get votes or something of that nature. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, so if they can always vote as far as the international boxing standpoint, then I think they should certainly put Jack Blackburn in there as a fighter, not just trainer. Vinny 66. Emil Griffith was another great, tough all-time division, right up there with, right up there with the middleweight. Yeah, you're right, Vinny. Emil Griffith, man, crazy. You know, I have this video that I started it last year, but I still have a ton of ways to go in terms of getting it complete. But it was gonna be focused on Emil Griffith and that rivalry with Benny Kid Perret. And I have, I don't even know if it's maybe 1/4 or maybe even less, a sixth of it done. But I eventually want to complete it at some point. But I think it will be good. It kind of highlights and dives into that rivalry. And of course, the tragic events that happened in that third fight. And of course, Emil Griffith, he apologized for it. I think it affected him for the rest of his life and the entirety of his life. I know he met with the son of Perret at some point while he was in older age or whatever, and kind of cleared the air and you let off a big relief on him or whatever, or shed a big relief per se. But yeah, I mean, Emil Griffith's a great fighter. If I'm not mistaken, the first three-time or first and maybe only three-time world welterweight champion, undisputed world welterweight champion. So that tells you everything about Emil Griffith. Just a great boxer. And I try to talk, when I talk to more of the guys from the modern times, I try to tell them you can't weigh boxers on win and losses because they all aren't created equal, or at least you can. But I just think there's so many factors that go into it. All wins and losses aren't created equal. That's what I will say, and that's what I always try to preach. So, yeah, Emil Griffith, without a doubt, one of the great fighters to lace them up. Flat Boxing says, as a fighter, his stats are 100% Hall of Fame worthy. Yeah, without a doubt, Blackburn's stats as a fighter, Flat for sure, Hall of Fame worthy. Hopefully he gets in there one day as a fighter, because I think he deserves to be in there. And there are a number of others who aren't in there as well. I believe young Peter Jackson is one of those guys. Yeah, I don't think he's in there. Great fighter. Jeff Clark, he's another one that is in there. Fought crazy resume, tough competition. Poland Ball says, hey, 86, if you're still interested, I'm free to chat. Oh, yeah, why not, Poland Ball? Why not? Let's jump into the mix here. I'm going to drop that thing in the chat. Man, yeah, we can see what's up without a doubt. No, I'm all for it. Vinny 66 says, I agree with Flat Boxing on Blackburn. Any fighter we're talking about 100 years later says it all. Yes, I think that's a plus. Generational fighters there, Flat or Vinny, generational fighters. And I think that speaks volumes. So, it's apples to oranges as far as fighters today and those of the past. But I think the great fighters or the top tier fighters from whatever era would compete with those in any era. So I think they all of them deserve their due respect. And the conditions were just so different for those back in the day, where I feel like it certainly it. I think the people need to take into account that this was the case with a number of those individuals. So they deserve the respect that comes with accomplishing whatever they accomplished in the sport, and I want to be a part of giving them that respect. I know there are a number of others who speak about their history who do the same. So I'm all for that. So Poland Ball is in the mix. I'm gonna add you in here. Was good with you, Poland Ball.
Hello,
Hey, good to
how
chat
are
with
you?
Hey, good to go. Good to go.
Nice to hear. I'm a big fan of the channel. I'm glad to see someone actually talk about old school boxing on YouTube. Never see it.
Oh yeah. Hey, I appreciate it. What is it? Oh yeah, Poland Ball. I was thinking of Flack there for a second, but yeah, I appreciate it. There are some others out there who talk about history. If you don't know about them, I recommend checking out Scrapbook Boxing, Boxing Librarian, of course, Randy.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those. They're very good, like YouTubers. You know, like they have so much information and knowledge in their channels, like yours as well. It's just insane to think, like, those guys talk about boxers I've never heard of.
Oh yeah. Hey, I run across boxers all the time, and a lot of them, I haven't heard of when I'm digging. So if I do do a video on a particular boxer, when I start to dig through, I often run into some fighters I hadn't heard of, and then I'll look into what they were able to do, and it's just like eye opening, because I guess between some of those early days and of course to where we are now, we've done a great job of documenting boxing history, but just some of the feats and some of these great fighters, their accomplishments, they have been lost along the way, So I'm all for them getting that recognition.
Yeah, they've earned it, that's for sure. It's a shame that they've been forgotten, because compared to modern boxers, like, you just see these guys from like young Peter Jackson, like Sam Langford, like these dudes who fight like at least 200 times and like for like pretty much nothing, compared to modern boxers who fight like cans for millions of dollars, like tens of millions. It's insane to think about how someone like Sam Langford died penniless, and there's actually footage of him dying like when he's an older man, and it's insane to think about.
Yeah, a lot of shady business going on from a management and promotional standpoint back in the day. Yeah, it's unfortunate that so many of these boxers died
They're exploited,
with no money. It's crazy. Same happened with Sam McVeigh. As a matter of fact, he died penniless for the most part, and Jack Johnson actually paid for his funeral services, which is
Jack
insane.
Johnson liked McVeigh a lot compared to Sam Langford and Joe Jeanette, because those two would talk a lot of crap about Johnson because he technically avoided them. But McVeigh, like from what I've read, seems like he was on Johnson's good side, like for his career. And I think he was actually close. I could be wrong, but I think Johnson was close to giving McVeigh a title shot at some point.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So Poland Ball is, hey, everyone follow Poland Ball. So you've been a big fan of the history. So do you like the mid to late 1800s? Is that something you're interested in as well?
For some reason, like just boxing history before 1950. Like, I don't know why, but like just the fact that these are people that, like, there's not really footage of them. So all you have is reading, and I love to read about this stuff. I love reading about dudes like Greb. I actually have a book right here, Steve Compton's biography on Greb. It's very informative. So if anyone wants to find out more about him, I actually have an alternate account called Fight Fan.
Okay.
You might have, and I try uploading. I've had this plan on uploading this video on Greb and his, like, a description of his style from what I've read. Yeah. So I want people to have like a better understanding of the time period, because people judge Greb off of his shadow boxing video and say that he's primitive compared to modern fighters. But when you see the dudes he beat, Gene Tunney, Tommy Loughran, like, you see dudes who look good even modern, according to like modern standards. So obviously there's like, the truth is in the middle. I don't know how to say it. Like, I plan on uploading a video about that. Sorry if it's like advertise. It wasn't meant for an advertisement thing. It just kind of came out.
Oh yeah. No doubt about it. Hey, I'm with you there. You know, that's a book I've been saying I'm gonna pick up.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's worth
Steve
it.
Compton. He did a good job for sure. He definitely did a good job. Yeah, Greb, man, one of those rare fighters. I think there's certain fighters that are in a almost in a tier of their own, and Greb is one of those. I view him and Langford for sure as being that. Then there's some others thrown in the mix there, but just an amazing fighter, Harry Greb, and I think that he has the best resume in boxing history, considering who he fought. If I'm not mistaken, he fought both of the Gibbons brothers.
Oh
I know
yeah.
for sure he beat Tommy Gibbons. Man, you just think about it, Mickey Walker,
He
and
ended
that's
Tommy Gibbons' 57-0 like run. That's insane. 57
yeah,
wins, no
right.
losses.
Yeah, that's insane. And man, I thought if we got film of Greb, that is like gold as far as I'm concerned. And I know that reel that you're talking about, which wasn't like a serious thing, it was just some mock stuff. I mean, that's the only video we have right now, but that was for, if I'm not mistaken, the Mickey Walker fight.
Yeah.
And man, it
After
would be so awesome to have that fight from all accounts. It's just one of those great fights, those great scraps, two guys going at it, and you really get to see Greb applying his trade. Of course, we know how tough in game Mickey Walker is, and we have
yeah,
videos out there of him
fights
fighting
heavyweights.
heavyweight. So think about that from the perspective of Harry Greb was able to beat this guy. And I think that's one of the things that, some fans, they can't really, I guess, comprehend the notion of a fighter being great without them actually seeing video of them. But I think that is kind of off base for the most part because regardless of whether there's video or not, you can't take away what they were able to accomplish. We have video of a lot of fighters that they face, so that should
Yeah.
tell you everything you need to know. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like, it just, I don't think Greb fought that differently to the shadowboxing footage, but that's mainly because like, if you read about Greb's style, he's someone who's completely unorthodox. Like,
Mm-hmm.
according to Tommy Gibbons, there's a quote I have, he says that Harry Greb does nothing right. And, like, that says everything you kind of need to know about the man. Like, he's not known as like a tactician. Like, if you're going to watch, like, if we find footage of Greb, we can't expect him to be another Floyd Mayweather
Yeah.
or even another Gene Tunney.
No, without a doubt. And yeah, I think, that speaks volumes in itself. And we have modern day examples. For instance, there's a fighter, Emmanuel Navarrete. He's a 130-pound champion. He was a featherweight champion. And stylistically, he throws punches from all over the place. And it looks as almost as though he's unskilled. And, just think about Graham, he's that tenfold. You think about Deontay Wilder, for instance. He's considered one of the best heavyweights in the world, but stylistically, from a fundamental standpoint, it's not
Very
like he's a
flawed.
great boxer, right? So you don't have to be stylistically, or you don't have to style it or have
Like,
the stylistic look.
fundamentally, you don't have to
Yeah,
be like a technical fighter in order to like
yeah, right.
succeed.
And that's where I kind of view Greb in the proper light in that sense because hey, at the end of the day, he fought the opponents that he fought, and he was racking up these wins. So that tells you everything in a sense because yeah, he's certainly one of those great fighters of all time, and I think that
Timeless.
if you get familiarized with the history of the sport, I know some people aren't really into it or are keen to it. But that being said, if you do and look at some of the accounts, in even the accounts of the fighters who were his peers, I mean, they tell you that he is the toughest or greatest fighter that they've had to face or seen. So, I mean, got to take these are people who are actually there during the time. So, yeah, what can I say against that here
Yeah.
in 2023 when you have people who were his
Who
peers at
saw
the
Greb? Yeah, that's crazy. I wonder how a fight between Greb and Langford would have gone. Now they think about like at their peaks, like stylistically, it's hard to picture it because we have no footage of Greb. But like the fact that they're, in my opinion, Langford and Greb are head and shoulders above everyone else in
Oh yeah.
like pound for pound. That's just my opinion. Like Robinson's third, but like I can't really. I think that the other two are just that insane. Like
Yeah.
talent wise, resume wise, they're just above the rest.
Yeah, I think they're up there without a doubt. That's an interesting fantasy matchup for sure. I mean, yeah, I think there's so many ways you can go with it. Where I guess Langford has the edge over Greb overall certainly is surrounding the power because Greb wasn't a big puncher. So, you would think that Langford's power would come into play. And I think, they are 1A, 1B, however you slice it in terms of those great fighters, just looking at it across all the weight divisions that they fought. And yeah, there are strong cases that can be made for both. So I think it would be a very good and interesting fight, entertaining fight. Man, it would be so great if we actually had that happen.
If we had footage of Grab, that'd be even like greater.
Yeah, right.
And just like there's so many fights. Like I actually read from Steve Compton. I saw a post he made one time on one of these boxing forums, and he said that his fourth fight with Tommy Gibbons was filmed. The Walker fight was filmed.
Okay.
Another fight from 1923 was filmed, and the Jack Dempsey spar was filmed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if we could get any of those would be remarkable. I want to see how a middleweight like Greb was even able to compete with Dempsey, let alone outclass him, like how it was like described.
Yeah, and I think that says that he's legit without a doubt. Man, I wish we had that footage as well. And I suppose that so there was some kind of documentary filmed on Tiger Flowers. I want to say in 1925 or 1926 or whatever. I
Really?
believe he may have died in 1926. But yes, there was like if you look at the movie archives or I believe it's a site or I don't know if it's archive.org, but where they track the films that they know have been lost or no longer available. And Harry Grant or Tiger Flowers film is one of those. And so it was filmed at some point. And of course, Tiger Flowers, we don't have any video of him. But I'd
Apparently, Tiger
imagine,
Flowers though he's another he's another insanely underrated fighter. Greb actually said that he thinks that Flowers could beat any other middleweight on the planet after his fight with him. And
oh yeah,
a fucked up. Oh, sorry. Like a demented fact about like Greb and Flowers is that they died, I believe, like a few months apart of each
yeah,
other, and
yeah, under similar
pretty eerie.
circumstances. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy, just considering the circumstances and the connection between the two. But yeah, that's crazy. Thinking about that, and I'd imagine that documentary they did on him would have had some footage of Greb. I don't see how it wouldn't have had any footage of Greb, given that
If
that's Tiger
Greb
Flowers.
Flowers was filmed, then I mean,
Yeah,
I'd love to see it, but it's like Greb's last fight, I believe, or it's one of his last fights.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
but
Certainly towards the tail
apparently he
end.
won. Sorry, apparently he won. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
sorry, I interrupted.
yeah, yeah. There was some controversy surrounding it. Tigers Flowers got the win, but there's those who say, yeah, it was that certainly questionable, and Greb could have gotten the win. So you certainly never know in the sport in that sense. But yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, it was a good matchup, but that's one I would like to see because from what I understand, Flowers was a more defensive fighter, or at least he had great defense, and so it'll be interesting
Yeah,
to see how he dealt with Greb, who, by all accounts, had threw punches in bunches from all angles, any and everywhere. And I think
no,
that's what set him apart. And reading that he could keep up a pace, unlike any of the others he was competing with. So that train hard for that type of stuff,
yeah. The
without a doubt.
technique though from back then, like Tiger Flowers, like his era technique wise is very underrated. Like even before that, there's dudes like I saw this one thing that you posted. It was a great video. It was I believe it was Professor Mike
Oh yeah,
Donovan who was
yeah,
sparring a bare knuckle fighter, and it's pretty crazy. Because even though he didn't look great, obviously because he was a bit open with his head. He wasn't moving his head that much, but there were occasions where he did, and it just seems like whatever was stopping him from being like, how do I say it? Whatever stopped him from performing better in that demonstration was his age rather than his
yeah.
technique. He seemed like someone who knew what he was doing, but his body just couldn't support what he was trying to
Oh
like
yeah.
do.
Yeah, he a great fighter there in Professor Mike Donovan. And I think the majority of his career was more so done sort of in the bare knuckle era, maybe under London prize ring rules. But that being said, man, yeah, he was one of those great boxers for his time, a technical boxer, a scientific boxer. I try to tell people or mention at least that, of course, technical boxing and the scientific boxing didn't start with James J. Corbett, because a lot of people associate him with technical scientific boxer, but that is not the case in terms of him being the first or whatever. Professor Mike Donovan is a great example of that. And yeah, the video you mentioned, this is an older guy. He might have been in his close to his 60s or whatever at that particular time, but he was still able to kind of demonstrate and show, and he trained a lot of fighters as well. As a matter of fact,
I believe he trained Roosevelt, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he probably had some connection to him. I heard that, I've read that Teddy Roosevelt was actually someone who was very much interested in boxing and competed in it when he was younger, I believe. So, I believe he would work out with it, or work out in relation to boxing. But yeah, so man, Professor Mike Donovan, he was around and in the mix, and he also
Dempsey as well.
Yeah, he was in the corner of James J. Corbett when he fought John L. Sullivan in 1892, as a matter of fact, for their World Heavyweight Championship fight. I can't remember if he was the trainer or the second, but Professor Mike Donovan was one of the ones in his corner. So Corbett
Sullivan looking at him, right? I believe.
What's that?
He fought Sullivan as well, I think, right?
I'm not 100% sure. He could have very well, no, you know what? I don't think he did in an official capacity. Now, it could have been an exhibition or something that I know of, but he was around that era. I'm sure there were probably some run-ins, or they came across each other. Maybe some things happened that we don't know of, right? Because I feel like everything isn't reported overall, of course, and there are probably a number of fights that we don't have documented. And for all the old fighters, it's always a matter of, hey, they have an estimated X amount of fights that they fought in their career, and we know it's higher than what's recorded. For instance, Jimmy Wild is one of those. I think he has somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 as far as his official record. When you look at some of the record-keeping sites,
George Dixon. Sorry, he has like 600. I read somewhere he has as high as 600. Like if you count everything he's done.
Yeah, he's another one.
Insane.
Yeah. Jimmy Wild, they say in the neighborhood of 800 for him. He was pretty much a minimum weight fighter, and he would fight bigger guys who would weigh 12 pounds more than him on a routine basis. And hey, it didn't stop him from racking up a bunch of knockouts as well. I believe he had 100. So yeah, it's just insane thinking about that.
Definitely.
Real quick, Black Boxing says, I saw footage of Mike Gibbons sparring, and yeah, Greb was 100% playing around. Gibbons looked sharp, and Greb destroyed Gibbons. Yeah, and Mike Gibbons, one of the most underrated fighters of all time, middleweight.
Mike Gibbons is a true tactician, I think, in comparison to, like, if you watch footage of Mike Gibbons fighting, I think it was Mike O'Dowd. You could find that on YouTube somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He looked, even though it was a losing performance, his defense was on point. His ring IQ was on point. You could just see a modern fighter just like transported back to 1919. It's crazy.
Yeah, I want to see that in slow. I've seen it, but it was kind of the speed wasn't proper. I want to see it edited. There's this channel, I think he's Legends Boxing or something.
It's an old channel, and they have like this watermark on it.
Yeah, but I want to see it at the corrected frame rates and all that stuff. But yeah, Mike Gibbons, very underrated middleweight, one of those top tier middleweights. I rate him higher than Tommy Gibbons even. He just, of course, didn't get win a world title that Mike Gibbons. But that being said, very good fighter. So I think that speaks volumes that Greb was able to defeat him and handle him, in a similar capacity to what he did with a lot of the great fighters from that time.
Like everyone, if you were a fighter in like 1920, like you're going to get outpointed by Greb. Like it's like inevitable. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Vinny 66, Walker and Greb had a brawl in a bar right after they fought in the ring. Yeah, those were some bad fellows, as you mentioned. Yeah, I heard about that as well. It's crazy. They took it to the streets. That shows you fighters right there, real fighters. Shout out to Flack Boxing who sent in the super chat. Says much deserved. Hey, appreciate you, Flack, without a doubt. Definitely salute to you. I feel you. Rodolfo mentions is Rodolfo. It says, is that your first one? No, I got like two. I think it is two or three, something like that. But hey, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, I just have a love for the history, for sure. Let me see. Dan says, Flat Buddy, did you notice when Greb and Gibbons shadow box, they're throwing punches from all angles? That's the way they connect with jaws, etc. Getting punches in. Fighters were very
It
skilled
looks
back then.
awkward, like
Yeah.
compared to modern shadow boxing. Like when, like I watched if you look at pre-fight footage of the Mike O'Dowd or like the Packy McFarland fight, there's footage of Mike Gibbons
Oh yeah.
shadow boxing. It looks a bit awkward, but if you look at his feet, like they're on point. It looks weird because I don't know if evolution is the right word, but like
Mm-hmm.
shadow boxing seems to have evolved much more than like in-ring performances. Like I've seen footage of Dempsey shadow boxing, he looks awkward. I've seen footage of a lot of fighters who like look different in the
Oh
ring
yeah.
when they shadow box just in the most bizarre way from that era. I think it's just a weird thing about the that era. It's just something unique, but the fact is that it's not a shadow boxing competition, it's a boxing match.
Yeah. Right.
So if you just show that shit in the ring, you feel me? So
Yeah.
like it's all that matters.
Yeah, and a lot of those things, those are like essentially the same as the promos of these days. So it's not like Greb was taking that stuff serious, any of them. As a matter of fact, when they were going to those particular things, those were just kind of news reels that were used as sort of promo events for these fighters because it was what was worthwhile at the time or what they were capable of. So yeah, that doesn't define Greb. And a lot of people would argue sparring, that mock stuff doesn't define a fighter. Of course, what it all boils down to is when you're actually in the ring with each other. And when that happens, Grab to show I think he's shown over his career that, yeah, he's been a level above the majority of the fighters that he's faced. So I think that's kudos in that regard. And I was thinking, so one of the videos I think I may have been mixing up with the speed incorrect is Packy McFarland and Mike Gibbons. I know some people mentioned McFarland earlier. Another one of those guys who had a great career, goes underrated, was undefeated in some sense. Even though I saw something like a newspaper account associating one loss to him, I can't remember which fight it was. But that being said,
It was like an early fight in 1903 against I think it was Dusty Miller. His name was
okay,
something like that. It was like, but there's no confirmation that it was actually it was actually Packy McFarland because there's some reports that say it was someone named Steve McFarland or so. It was like another McFarland. So it's like not completely.
I wouldn't be surprised. Certainly, in looking through Boston history and researching such, I've run across several names, and if you don't actually look, you would think it's the more famous or more accomplished boxer, and it turns out it's just someone who took on that name. And I'm talking not even guys who went on to do good things, but these are guys who may have had one or two fights, but they have the same name as another one. If you search on BoxRec, you see that pretty much all the time. So it's very interesting, without a doubt. Just thinking about that in general. Let me see. So Flat Boxy says, not sure if my messages went through, but I saw footage of the Mike Gibbons hitting a bag with his brother Tommy on our roof, and he looked very, very sharp. I haven't been able to find it since. Yeah. Hey, Mike Gibbons from.
I have that footage. I could post it in the chat.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, Mike Gibbons. I have him on a list to do a video on him because I regard him as one of the great middleweights to have laced him up, especially for a guy at that time who didn't have a ton of fights by comparison to some of the others during the era. But he is certainly one of the greats just in general when you think about middleweight and what he was able to do. His resume, I think he only lost 4 times. But of course, when you're facing high-level competition, it can happen at any given point. or whatever. I'm of the mindset that if you fight long enough against a high level of competition, you'll eventually lose. So I don't lose any sleep over it because fighters are thorough and made by virtue of the competition and the experience that they gain when fighting. So I don't hold any of that stuff against anyone if they have a loss or whatever. I know we're infatuated. I know many are infatuated with having a zero next to their name, but that doesn't necessarily make you a great fighter. There are plenty of boxers who have a zero next to their name, but yeah, you will never hear of them. You probably never heard of them if they were someone from the past, but I think that's just the way it is, you know. Boxing's too deep from a history standpoint. So it is one of those things.
Yeah.
Like Boxing says, I also subscribe, or yeah, also I subscribe Poland. So cool. Poland
Yes,
ball.
I'm trying to find this footage. It's very. I found the sparring one and the Paki McFarlane. I'll post it right in the chat.
Okay, cool. And you know, yeah, footage is such a rarity, man. I feel like there's something out there in someone's basement somewhere, even if not in this country. I know that, for instance, there is a fight film of Denver Ed Martin against Gus Rulin, who are two heavyweights who are very competitive.
There's
From
footage
those,
of Denver Ed Martin. Really?
well, it can't. I don't think they have it. There was at least something filmed, and I know that's documented. But where it lies is another thing. So it's not out there on YouTube, from what I gathered or whatnot.
It's
But it
so
may have been one of
unfortunate.
those that were destroyed.
I've seen so many on YouTube where
Yeah.
they just get taken down, like that McAuliffe
Oh
Jack
yeah.
Dempsey spar. That I've looked everywhere. I looked on Internet Archive. I've tried trying to like recover that, as well as that Greb like 6 second like there's extra footage of Greb on YouTube somewhere, but it was taken down. I've tried recovering it, and it's been very difficult.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I heard the same thing about that Dempsey sparring, that there was some footage of Dempsey sparring Greb. And, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, I've looked into those actual sort of copyright laws, and apparently, at least it's supposed to be, I think after 75 years, it's supposed to be considered public domain. So we know that's over 75 years. And yeah, I don't know why they would have been taken down because maybe unless someone else purchased a copyright or whatever, but those are usually public domain. So I feel when you get some of those videos from way back then that should be the case or whatever. You shouldn't get them taken down, but I guess you never know. I know the rules are always changing as far as YouTube and what's allowed and what isn't. But man, it would be so crazy to be able to see those videos in knowing that they were here and on YouTube at some point, you know?
Yeah, it's just the fact is it's the ones that were on YouTube that just like aggravate me, because it's like they're teasing us, like, oh
yeah,
we're just gonna have this on YouTube, then we're gonna take it down, and then it's just like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
frustrating. Is there any footage that you have like that you haven't released that like you would find unique?
Well, you know, I don't have any other that I released. I've run across a number of things, and some of them may be out there already. I'm not sure.
Any examples like from back, like old? Like
I'm thinking about footage of like Jack Dempsey. Then there are a number of these military-based fights. I don't know if any pros were tied to them. I've ran across a number of those, so like I don't know who the individuals are or whatever. There are multiple sites that have these old videos of boxing and things of that nature that are going on. I remember running across one that had some James J. Jeffries kind of, I can't remember if it was sparring or working out or something of that nature. And it was new for me in terms of seeing it, and I don't know that it was on YouTube.
Is it the one where he's using a lot of head movement?
It might very well be. It certainly might very well be. But yeah, I haven't been able to find like stuff that is like kind of rare and out there. Someone had mentioned that Professor Mike Donovan was in a video, but I do know that there are boxing videos out there where the boxers aren't identified, you know, and it could very well be a boxer of note. but you never know, of course. But I do wish there were more. I looked across some different sites that are based on like the filming industry and the museums or whatever it may be. For those, some of them you can't really look at the archives online or whatever, but you never know. Maybe there's some universities who have things out there. I know stuff pops up here and there, but yeah, it would be cool to see some kind of database where they were at. But I've seen a lot of promo type stuff, like with the likes of Dempsey, things of that nature, where he was doing interviews or some fighters. And I recently, like, someone had linked me to, I don't know if it was you, as a matter of fact, Dempsey. He was a little bit older. Him and Fred Fulton, the heavyweight, they were in some event or whatever. They're older, of course, but they were there playing around. You know,
I don't think it was me, but I think I've seen the thing. It was like, "This is your life," right? It was like that.
Yeah, right. That is it. That is it, without a doubt. So, yeah, it's man, like, yeah, it would be so cool if more comes up. You know,
I don't have that much like myself. Like, I don't have that much footage myself.
Yeah,
but I do have this one thing that's interesting, but I'm not sure if I can really release it because the dude who I got it from, I don't think he'd really. I think he worked pretty hard on it, so I just want to get his permission first. But I have like a small snippet of like AI like altered footage from the Joe Gans fight with battling Nelson.
Okay, yeah,
and it looks pretty good. It's a bit fast, but you can actually identify who's who, because there's one big one in YouTube. This giant 1 hour long like fight between Gans and Nelson, but it's completely blurry. But
yeah, I looked at that. You know, I couldn't tell if it was different scenes spliced together that were the same or what, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I have this. I have this small like snippet, like a project. Apparently, there was supposed to be a project that was canceled to restore the Joe Gans fight because it just looks that terrible. But hopefully they try restoring it again, because I really want to see that full fight. I want to see Joe Gans in a full, at his like finest, I guess.
Yeah, I want to see that one as well. That was a great fight. I think it went 41 rounds or something like that.
Imagine fighting 41 rounds.
Yeah, and I tell people, yeah, legitimate. It wasn't London prize ring rules or bare knuckles, so they were going 3 minutes. So 3-minute rounds at 40 plus rounds. So that's insane. You know, it doesn't compare to anything today. It's just different level and breed of fighter, without a doubt. But yeah, I want to see more of that footage. So I was thinking that guy Smooth Legends, that's a channel who posts
incredible channel.
Yeah, it has a lot of that stuff restored. It's pretty crazy. You know, I was watching something last night that he had posted up there. But
I want to check. Hold on.
I'm sorry?
I want to check what he posted, if he posted anything new.
Yeah, I think he posted something last night or yesterday at some point.
Oh, Ali sparring footage.
Yeah. He did post that. So yeah, that's not bad right there. And I like what he does in terms of restoring stuff. So fixing the frame rates. So shout out to Smooth Legends, without a doubt. I think that's a good thing. Black Boxing says Mike had great head movement from his shoulders, unique look, and good and was effective. Okay, yeah. Mike Gibbons. He's certainly one of those. Dan says Tommy said Mike taught him head movement. Yeah, I can believe that. I'm guessing Mike was a little older, right? So, but yeah, he was a great fighter in his own right. Flat Boxing says it's crazy how we have pictures of the tickets of Greb and Walker in theaters, yet any footage at all is just non-existent. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is pretty insane. Same with Maxie Rosenblum. I want to see him as well. Another great fighter. He had so many crazy amounts of fights.
Flapsy
Maxie, but we have no footage of him in the ring. That's insane when you're talking 300 plus fights or whatever.
I do want to see a style of just slapping the shit out of everyone. Just I wonder how, like, it's possible, but like, how did he gain like respect from like punching power wise? Like whenever I'm sparring, at least I have to like show some force to kind of get the dude from completely manhandling me. So I wonder how how someone with like a 9% KO. I think he had like 17 knockouts in 300
Yeah,
fights.
crazy.
And so like I wanted to see like how he did it. Like,
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think that's one of those mysterious things, but certainly, yeah, he wasn't a puncher at all. So I think that adds even more to it, the fact that he had to box his way through all of those fights, and just thinking about the amount of wins. Same with Greb. He didn't have a lot of knockouts for sure. So he had to do the same thing, like box his way through all of that stuff. So that is insane. So Flack Boxer says Slapsy Maxi was just a nickname, 19 KOs and 223 wins. That's insane. So yeah, he was outboxing all of these guys he was facing, and that I think should tell you that how great he was or whatever. You know, if you think about like the greatest fighters of all time, especially a top 10 or something of that nature, I think he warrants being there just given the amount of experience that he had and what he was able to do. And he fought a hell of a resume as well, you know. So those guys were a little bit different.
He fought Slattery, who I rate pretty highly. I've seen footage of Slattery. He looks pretty good.
Yep.
He looks unorthodox, but good. He also fought John Henry Lewis. I think he won their series.
Oh, yeah. John Henry Lewis. You know, I ran across a video of him recently. I hadn't seen it. I didn't know there was anything out there, but it was him getting knocked out. It was only a few seconds, but him getting knocked out by Joe Louis.
Actually, I posted some footage on my channel of him knocking down someone in sparring.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out. Is this Fight Fan channel?
Yeah, the Fight Fan channel.
Okay, cool. Fight Fan. Yeah, drop the link to your channel in there because definitely want to check that out.
Yeah.
Definitely want to check that out because, always looking to see some of that stuff right there. Some of those good footage. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that right there. And I know John Henry Lewis was past it when he fought Joe Louis. But yeah, another guy who had a very solid resume, a lot of fights or whatever. One of the great light heavyweights of in boxing history.
Most underrated. I'd say he's certainly up there because like you barely see him mentioned.
Yeah,
I haven't really seen him mentioned very often at all.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Yeah, there's so many boxers out there who aren't mentioned. And hey, they did a lot of great things in the sport or whatever. So yeah, Flat Boxer says very unfortunate he met Lewis in his last fight. Yeah, I think he was pretty much a shot fighter at that time. I believe that was the case. And Lewis, of course, we know he's a devastating puncher in boxing history. So yeah, he did what he had to do with the smaller man coming up to challenge him. Pulling Ball dropped his link in the chat, so be sure to subscribe to Pulling Ball. That's for everyone listening here in the aftermath, replay gang, and everything. I'm going to subscribe myself, there, Fight Fan, because I want to check out some of that stuff. Always loving the history, right? Because we often don't get enough of it at times. So, you know, that's what I wanted to do, continue to talk about boxing. I was trying to do this more often, just speaking on different subjects from history or whatever. Might be back tomorrow or whatever. I'm going to see. But yeah, the intent.
I'd be down.
Cool. All right, I'm going to set something up. Around this same time, I want to talk about some fighters or whatever. And I'll reach out to you and try to get your email or whatever. We can work it out or whatever. And
you have Instagram. Maybe I'll
86 Boxing on Instagram. Yeah, reach out to me. I'll hit you up. We can talk about something we can potentially chat about here tomorrow. Because I love having the discussions always.
Yep.
All right.
It was nice being on the channel. It was my first podcast.
All right, cool. Hey, yeah, we can do it more. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a good thing. I always love talking boxing. As I always say, hey, I don't know everything. So there are so many people out there who know a lot. And I think coming together to kind of share that history is benefit to the history of the sport in itself. So I'm for it.
Absolutely.
I'm for it. So yeah, 86 Boxing on Instagram. Hit me up. I got you. I'm going to hit you back. And I'm going to subscribe to Fight Fan. But
well, I'm going to head off. It was very nice being on the stream. And I hope to be on tomorrow or another time.
All right, yep, setting something up. Fight Fan, good stuff. Yeah, appreciate having you here, Poland Ball. Love the dialogue in the comments and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, certainly have a good one. All right, folks. Beagle, hey, Beagle, didn't know you were in here. Beagle 47, salute to you, Beagle. Fight Fan had 2.4K Fight Fan on your last video. Very nice. Good stuff. Good stuff, Fight Fan. Salute to Fight Fan for being here. Random acoustic thoughts, everyone. Beagle dropping in the mix. Salute to you, Beagle. Getting ready to end this thing. We've been going almost pretty much 3 hours for the most part. But hey, boxing history never gets old. So I appreciate everyone being here without a doubt. All good times. Just like Ali quickly throwing lots of punches. Yeah, without a doubt. Awesome to be on the channel. Poland Ball, without a doubt, Poland Ball. Appreciate you dropping by and actually jumping on. So yeah, we'll have to do more discussion. I think it's all great in terms of discussing history and what we can all take and learn from it. So to everyone that joined, I appreciate you all. Definitely salute to you. We'll be back without a doubt. So stay tuned for sure. Stay tuned. Boxing history.